Good morning and welcome to the Planning and Placemaking Committee of the 15th of April 2026. I'm Councillor Ian Massey and I'm the convener of this committee. I'll now introduce you to the top table. On my far left is Councillor Grant Stewart, my vice convener, Miss Audrey Brown, Democratic Support Officer, and Mr Colin Elliott, Solicitor. And on my right is Mr Christian Smith, Development Management and Building Standards Service Manager, Mr Sean Panton, Team Leader, Major Applications and Enforcement, and Mr Paul Williamson, Team Leader, Local Applications. We've got some housework to say today. I want to remind members that the Scottish Parliament election will take place on the 7th of May 2026, and as such, there may be a heightened sensitivity around what is said and done in these months ahead. Broadly speaking, the Local Government Act 1986 prohibits the Council from publishing material which is designed to affect public support for a political party or campaign. Normal Council business obviously continues, but as always, Council resources, staff and facilities cannot be used for political purposes. Any events, publicity or other communications promoted by the Council must always be politically neutral. Further guidance, if required, is available from the Chief Executive or from the Elections Manager. As this is a hybrid meeting, members joining virtually are reminded, I'm going to have to change that word, reminded that if you leave the meeting during consideration of any application, you are unable to participate or vote on that item when you return to the meeting. This also means that if a member loses their internet connection during consideration of any item, they should not vote on that item. Please advise a clerk via the meeting chat that you are leaving the meeting, or if you have lost your connection and are therefore unable to vote on an item. And whilst we are operating as a hybrid meeting for the proceedings today, can I remind councillors and officers to use the chat box to attract my attention? Q for question, C for comment. I will now ask the clerk to confirm any apologies and the attendance of those in the chamber and online.
Morning, members. Today we have apologies from Councillor Cuthbert with Bailey Brock substituting, Councillor Waters with Councillor McPherson substituting, and Bailey Williamson with Councillor Frampton substituting. We have one member online. I'll ask if he's present. Councillor James.
Morning, Audrey. I'm here, thank you.
Thank you. Everybody else is present in the chambers.
Thank you. Move on to declarations of interest. Do any members have declarations of interest? Okay, thank you. Item 3, the minute of the meeting of the Planning and Placemaking Committee of the 11th of March 2026. Do members agree the content of the minute? We move on again to item 4, deputations. Can I ask the committee if they agree to hear deputations on item 512, 521, 522 and 523? Thank you. And on behalf of the committee, I'd like to extend a warm welcome to the deputations and members of the public watching today. Your request to speak has been granted. You will be called to the lectern as we reach the relevant item on the agenda and be invited to make your deputation by the Vice Convener, followed by a period of time for questions from members. It is requested that you keep the content of your deputation relevant to the matter in question and in relation to the item of business being discussed. Please ensure that when answering questions, your response remains relevant and direct to the question asked. Item 5, applications for determination. The first item, major application, is for a section 42 to vary condition 2, period within which development should be commenced, of permission of 22/01071/FLM battery energy storage system, land 170 metres south of Newhouse Farm, Perth, and to introduce the report is Mr Panton.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning, councillors. So as stated, the first application on the agenda today is a Section 42 application to amend a single condition that was attached to a previous planning permission for a battery storage facility near Newhouse Farm in Perth. The condition under question is Condition 2, which required that the planning permission was implemented within 3 years of the date of the previous decision, which was January 2023. It is now proposed to extend this for a further 3 years. This therefore essentially means that the application before you today should be treated as a renewal of planning permission. Members should note that no public objections were received regarding the proposed development, and it is only before the committee as it constitutes a major development. I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. Thank you. So here we can see the location of the site, which is just to the west of the A9 on the outskirts of Perth. The site is approximately 1.8 hectares and currently comprises of agricultural grazing land. The development site is within the settlement boundary of Perth on an allocated mixed-use site and is in close proximity to the existing substation, which is on Old Gallows Road, as shown in the map in front of you. Next slide, please. We now have a proposed site plan. No changes are proposed to this plan from what has already been approved. We are simply looking at the timescales for implementation today. Next slide, please. We now have a more zoomed in version of the proposed site plan. The facility will comprise of 56 containerised storage units housing batteries, inverters, transformers and control equipment. In addition to this, a control building, together with associated equipment such as power converters and cooling units, is included. Some ground levelling will also take place, including a landscaped bund. Next slide, please. We now move on to photographs from the case officer's site visit. This first photograph shows the site under question. You can see that the field here is currently occupied by some farm animals in the distance. Next slide, please. This final photograph again shows the site under question, this time showing the associated tree belt and stable building. Next slide, please. Before concluding, members should note that the report incorrectly references condition numbers and places. For example, paragraph 46 refers to condition 17 when it should be condition 18. For the avoidance of doubt, the conditions themselves are correct, but the errors within the report itself should be noted. So thank you, convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the proposed site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. Can I ask, do members have any questions for officers? Councillor Braun.
Yep, thanks, convener. It's really just a bit of clarity because we're talking. This was originally condition 2. When we look at the conditions now, it's condition 1, and the original condition 1 seems to have disappeared, which was to do with approval in drawings. I mean, is that a standard thing we now drop that condition off, or has the work already started there that we don't need to have it in there? Just for the clarity, that's all.
Councillor Braun, I can answer that one. Is to do with sections 58 and 59 of the 97 Act, and what I mean by that is there's been a change as to how you refer to things, and plans are no longer conditioned, they're simply listed in the decision notice, so that condition drops out, is no longer appropriate, but the plans are still approved because they're listed at the bottom of the decision notice.
Yeah, basically since the time of the previous approval we no longer apply that condition because it's not necessary.
Thank you. Any further questions? Further questions? Can I ask for a motion? Mr. Braun.
Yeah, thanks, Committee. Just a motion to approve the change in condition as detailed in the papers.
Councillor Illingworth, you wish to second?
Happy to second, convener.
Thank you. Can I ask if there's an amendment? Yes, yeah, sorry. No amendment. I ask members if they have any comment on the report. No comment on the report. Thank you. Therefore, planning permission is granted subject to the revised conditions. Thank you. It moves swiftly on to 512, which is for the formation of 2 all-weather sports pitches, erection of spectator stand and fencing, installation of floodlighting and associated works Jeanfield Swift Stadium, Butte Drive, Perth, and to introduce the report is Mr. Panton.
Thank you, Convener. So as stated, the second major application on the agenda today is for the expansion of Jeanfield Swift's facility at Butte Drive, Perth, for which we are recommending approval. The expansion will see the formation of 2 all-weather sports pitches, the erection of a spectator stand and fencing, in addition to the installation of floodlighting and associated works. I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. So here we can see the location of the site, which is just off of Butte Drive in the residential area of North Muirton in Perth. The site is currently an area of open space and is adjacent to the River Tay. Next slide, please. We now have a proposed site plan. As can be seen, a second pitch will be created to the east of the existing pitch, with a spectator stand centrally located between the 2 pitches. The car park will also be resurfaced, with lines being added to ensure a greater parking provision. A new overflow car park and drop-off facilities will also be provided. Next slide, please. We now have another site plan, this time showing better the areas of new hard standing. As can be seen, these surround both pitches and lead to the existing clubhouse building. Next slide, please. We now have some sectional plans showing the proposed floodlighting, fencing, and the new spectator stand. The floodlighting columns are approximately 15 metres high. It should be noted that the existing trees on the boundary with the North Inch Golf Course are to be retained. Next slide, please. Here we have the elevations of the proposed spectator stand. This stand will be capable of accommodating approximately 300 spectators, with 150 on either side. Next slide, please. We now move on to a proposed visual of the site. Your attention is drawn towards the bus drop-off area to the left of the image, the improved parking, which is central in the image, and the new spectator stand and pitch to the top of the image. You will also see that the proposed development will not significantly impact existing access rights. Next slide, please. We now move on to a series of recent photographs taken by the case officer. On the left, you can see the closest public bus stop on Butte Drive, which is a sheltered stop. And to the right, you can see some of the closest residential receptors. Next slide, please. These photographs now show the existing clubhouse and parking area. As previously mentioned, significant improvements to this parking area are proposed. Next slide, please. We now have images of the existing pitch at the facility. You can also see here the existing floodlighting, which is in situ. Next slide, please. We now move on to an area of open space where the second pitch will be created. Next slide, please. These final photographs now show the site when viewed from the active travel route, which runs from the North Inch along the river towards Inverarmond and beyond. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation. I will leave members with the proposed site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Panton. We do have deputations on this item, so I'll hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputation procedures.
Thank you, Convener. It's come to our attention that a couple of deputations are running late, so we'll jump to deputation by Bailey Ahern, local member and objector. Bailey Ahern, I'm sure you're familiar with the procedures. I'll start the clock. You've got 5 minutes. I'll start whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Convener. Thank you for allowing my deputation. I'll be speaking against the planning application in its current form. I'm not entirely opposed to the plan in principle, but want promises that were given to be implemented. We currently have a club that ignores the local population with its complaints about parking, and reading the application, it doesn't appear to be doing any much more to support the local population, which was promised. Whenever there's a match, cars are parked on local streets, at junctions in such a way that the junction becomes dangerous as there's no line of sight coming out onto Butte Drive. Cars park on the emergency access road to the river, but more recently access to the local allotments, which were opened up at the end of that lane. When the club is in use, it's impossible to use the road, and as for access to the allotments, despite the signage not asking people to block the gates, you can forget it. More often than not, you're met with verbal abuse. and one of the other objectors will be able to explain more because he was the person that got the verbal abuse. Cars are parked on green space land haphazardly and churn up the grass. And the turning circle that you saw there for the buses, that's green space land. As far as I know, that hasn't been agreed to go across. Paragraph 75 of the papers talks about using the church car park. I have a message from Dave Rankin, the minister of the church, who is currently on holiday and cannot attend himself. Hi Chris, greetings from Greece. Just to mention re the Greenfield decision next week, the church has not made any agreement for the ongoing use of our car park, and nor can we. Any agreement would need to go through the central church lawyers. The decision should not be based on our parking spaces, and I'm not able to attend the meeting on the 15th. Cheers, Dave. Really appreciate it. The club do know, I've written to the community club, we plan to meet with them on the 20th of April to discuss, but there is no guarantee of an agreement, and any local perspective is subject to central solicitors agreement. Just to clarify, so you have to ignore the 35 spaces that are in that paper that the church said that they would use. Paragraph 99 talks of community use. During a couple of public meetings and several private meetings I've had with the club, I asked about community use. At one meeting, they put up a timetable on the screen with how they thought the pitches would be used, and the community use could use it for maybe up to 2 hours after school, and that was only if it was not being used by the club. Some community spirit there. Paragraph 46 mentions the adjacent recreation ground. Why has this been mentioned in the application? This is public ground for anyone to use and is not in the application and does not belong to the club. Actually, up to now, club's community spirit has been throwing local children off the community grass pitches so they could play on themselves. I've witnessed this and had complaints about their actions and was told this would never happen again, but it happened numerous times. Good luck to the local community getting on the clubs or their own pitches. We were told that would only be one match on at a time and that 2 pitches would not be used at the same time. So why are they building 2 pitches? I suppose football practice will be one answer. So with 2 pitches being used for practice, then more cars are coming along to use them, including during the week. So we're getting more of a problem over a greater number of days. We were promised faithfully in the meetings that parking would be the #1 issue. They would increase the number of spaces. What have they done? Added a small additional parking area for cars. They have said they would mark out parking bays. This would likely reduce the amount of spaces. They even identified an area of ground that could be used along the entire back of the facility. And that is the bottom part of the pitches there, the green grass that goes all the way along the back. They were originally planning to put parking all the way along there. Noise and lighting has also been raised as an issue, with current lighting causing problems for some of the immediate neighbours. 1 or 2 that I was in contact with have moved because of the club. I'm fed up with the so-called promises from Greenfield Swifts and would like to see the plans amended to address the concerns of the residents, including putting in sufficient space to cover 2 pitches being used. I would welcome the extra facilities in Northmuir, as promised, if there's enough parking, the facilities are given to the local community, and the club has better control over its members and guests at matches and deals with the antisocial behaviour of some of their members and visitors. Questions I would like answered. Recommendation 5. No music should be played through the PA tannoy system, and the system should be limited to safety announcements only. What happens if that's not adhered to? Recommendation 8, and I won't read the whole of it because you've got it in front of you, but when will elected members and the community get to see the construction traffic plan? Recommendation 11, match day traffic plan. What happens if they do not comply with the traffic plan and we continue to get local streets and pathways blocked? What happens if the local community do not agree to the match day traffic plans? Thank you very much. As I said, I'm not objecting to the application itself. I think having that facility with the 2 pitches is really good for Greenfield Swifts. They've done really well to get themselves promoted into football leagues. However, I am concerned about the impact on the local community. Thank you.
Thank you, Bailey Ahern. There's no questions, so Councillor Brown.
It's going to be one of those days. I'll have a few questions as we go along, but you mentioned in your good morning to your council. Sorry, thank you for your deputation. You mentioned that were promised parking spaces. So how many spaces were promised?
As I said in my presentation, they said that they were going to put a big car park along the back. They recognised that having 2 pitches there was going to cause significant problem and a huge increase in parking. They promised that there would be sufficient parking right along the back there, which, and I cannot remember if it was double, but they said that they were hoping to double the amount of spaces they've got, which is currently roughly 65, which would have put 130 spaces in. Now, if you look at what the planning paper says, if you include the parking spaces that are in the church, which is 35, which they can't use, that would have only taken it to 100. So we're nowhere near what they promised.
My apologies, Councillor Aaron. I had an IT problem. If your question, please.
I think my question is similarly minded, really. Thank you for your deputation. Obviously, there's concern about traffic management and parking. Have you got a view as to what you would see as a solution?
Yes, more parking spaces is one solution. Better management of the traffic is another solution. We have currently an issue. So Cramond Place is right opposite, and cars park right on that road, right up to the corner. And that's the junction where we have issues with line of sight. We currently in North Muirton are going through a review of the parking areas within the whole of North Muirton, and we're going to be marking bays out in all the courts. But part of that also is where do we need to put the likes of double yellow lines to prevent issues. Now, that has been raised as an issue, so that may be one of the points where we'll get double yellow lines. There are other areas, but I don't see having the car parking space we've got now alleviating the problems we've got with the local roads, the roads going up to the river, or access to the allotments.
Okay, thank you for that. So what I picked up from your deputation was that there's a need for more parking spaces, but that you object to them using the green spaces to accommodate those parking spaces. So what would your recommendation be to help them achieve what they're trying to do here?
Do what they promised and use the area of grass at the rear. That there, they reckon they could have doubled the amount of parking spaces there. Currently, where they've got the turning circle is green space land. And I don't understand from that application, of that picture there, why the red line of the application includes the road and that green space land. Now, I have an email going back quite a few months, and that area marked out in red there is what planning wanted. It's not what the club wanted. So they're including the council planning department are including the green space land where they want to put the turning circle.
Just to help me, because I'm not familiar with that particular piece of ground at the bottom there that you suggest should be used for parking, is that green space land?
As far as I know, yes.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Thank you, Bailey Ahern, for your presentation. It's related to 2 questions my colleagues just asked. So your solution in this case would be to have parking at the south, like as the bottom of this picture here, extended parking. And that's your main objection to this development, is the parking related issues. If that was solved, you would be relatively in favour of it going forward. Thanks.
My main objection, I've got a couple of objections, but the main part is the parking. Yes, if they could use that land at the bottom as agreed, then that would be one solution. If you look at where it is now, and you look to the right of the page, you've got a bit of ground between there and the tree. There is no reason why you couldn't put an access road into there and use that, because you can't put a football pitch or anything up there. It's not big enough to really use, and it would solve a problem. It's never been discussed, but that's one of the solutions I had. The parking was one issue. The constant discussions and the constant give of what the club was telling us in all the public meetings was that it would be used for community use. And they produced a timetable in that meeting, which they put up on the screen, and it said that the kids in the local area could use it from after school till 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday, with a caveat that it wasn't being used by any other teams. To me, that is not community spirit. And having the pitch to the north there, where you've got that black outline pitch there, that is on green space public ground. That is not controlled by the club. But I've seen and witnessed and had complaints about local kids playing there on a weekend being kicked off for the club to use it. That is not community spirit either.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Going back to the parking situation as it is now, roughly how many cars can get parked there? Because one of the points raised here is that the existing car park isn't lined, and therefore you get cars obviously parking various distance apart. So roughly how many do you think can get parked there at the moment on a reasonable match day?
Depending on how you're good at parking, anywhere between 50 and 60 in that car park. Some spaces have got to be kept available for match officials. And then there's a couple of club users, I think, that are disabled, and they use a couple of spaces there, but no more. Whenever I've witnessed trying to put lines in a car park, because you tend to put wider spaces, it tends to reduce the number of parking spaces. I have no idea who went along and measured it and went, we could put 65 here. When you've got 65, say there's 65 car parking there, the bit of ground where they want to put the turning circle, that's normally covered in cars and churning up the mud. That probably holds about 10. And you've probably got about 25 going up the road to the river. And then you've got another 10, 15 maybe at the top. I mean, my concern is that's an access route for emergency vehicles should somebody be in the river. Even if the vehicles were to get up that track, they would be lined up one after each other down the track because there is nowhere to go at the top, and they would all have to reverse out. You've got locals who've just gone into a brand new allotment area which was built and requested. People can't get up there. They can't get up there with equipment. They can't get up there with bags of manure or dirt, earth or whatever. So they can't use it on a weekend, and that's when people want to go and use an allotment.
Councillor James.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Thanks for the presentation, Bailey Ahern. And I'm caught between a rock and a hard place here. We're as a planning committee, land ownership isn't a consideration. Funny enough, you can apply for a planning application anywhere. So the inclusion of the church ground for parking is a neither here nor there. The only other thing I'm thinking, where you're asking about parking being placed along the bottom of that site as you see it on the plan, that's a tree protection line there. So, you couldn't use it for parking because of the roots of the trees which are being retained. Where would you suggest that parking could be placed otherwise if parking is the issue? And I've got to be honest, no matter where you go with kids football, there's always a parking issue on match day. I know it's not an excuse, but I'm just trying to see if there is a solution. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll take your last comment there first, and you saying there's always a parking on match days. By the club putting in 2 pitches, they're extending the issue. Beyond match days, it's going to be there for training days. That's the only reason I can see them putting the 2 pitches in, because their comment to us was there would only be 1 match on at a time. So they would use 1 pitch in the morning and then use the next pitch for the match in the afternoon. Well, you're still going to get spectators staying on. So granted there. As for you saying, and your first comment about you can't use other people's ground in terms of thinking about the application. The church has said you can't use the 35 spaces. The club shouldn't have put it in their submission. It shouldn't be in there for members to take into consideration. Where do I think the car parking should be? Oh, you're there, no, not the plan. If you go back to the plan, there's that grass area at the rear. If that could be used, then that would alleviate a lot of problems. You don't need to use the whole of it, but if you look at the width of the car parking space there and replicated that at the other end, then you would get another 65 spaces in at the other end.
Councillor Illingworth.
Thank you. How often are the matches? How often are the peaks in usage?
It varies at the time of the season. There are 32 teams there now, and they're getting more successful. Therefore, the more success they've got, the more matches that they tend to play. The first team are, I can't remember what division they're in, but they certainly got a lot. And then, of course, you've got home and away matches. So it's very difficult. But with 32 teams, part of the reason that they've asked for the second pitch is because they need the pitches to train. So I would imagine that the two pitches are going to be used a lot during the week.
But the other question is, how often are the peaks, the real peaks, when you have lots of people coming in?
Well, it's difficult because you've got closed season. There's not so much. I can't tell you when home matches are. It depends on the FA and how they arrange the matches. I would say the peak would be if there were 2 home games and a lot of practices on in a particular week. Where would there be a drop? Well, if they're both playing away and the pitches weren't being used. I can't tell you because I haven't seen the football programme.
Bailey Ahern, I have a question. You made reference to a traffic management plan. Are you aware of any plan in place, formal or formal, at present?
No, I'm just going by what was written in the application, that there is a traffic plan supposed to be. There was 2 traffic plans, one for the building works, and then the club are supposed to be presenting one for match days. So I'm looking at both. I'm looking at the community and being involved in both of them. Certainly the construction plan, and having sat on planning before and seen the fact that the construction traffic plans are discussed and hopefully will be shown to the local community. We've got 2 schools. It's almost directly next door to this secondary school, and it's along the road and across the road from a primary school. So yes, I have got concerns and would like to see the traffic management plan for the construction, but I would also like to see how the club propose to manage parking at match days or when there's practice. Because at the moment, nobody takes responsibility. If I go up to the club when I've had a complaint and drive from my house up to the club and go, right, can somebody sort this parking out? The person you speak to goes, it's not part of us. We're the club. We're not the team. And then you get a vice versa. So I want somebody in that club to take responsibility for parking.
Right. So indirectly, you've kind of answered my question that you're not aware of either formal or informal traffic management at present, but you recognise that there is going to be one. Yeah.
Well, they're both mentioned in the planning application as something that should be done when it comes up, given if the application is accepted.
Thank you, Bailey Ahern. There's no further questions. You're free to go. Oh, no, here we go. Councillor Braun.
You mentioned community use earlier on. I'm not sure how much we can control that by condition. We'll query that with officers as we go. But as it stands at the moment, it's look at that map there. I understand we've got the pitch to the left, which exists. The one on the right is the new one, and the one above is this dotted black line is the existing other pitch. Now, assuming this goes through and we've got 2 more pitches, this concept of kicking children off that you were talking about who are playing, that third pitch will be theirs to use. Would I mean, if you've got 2 going, would they need to have that one? What I'm saying is the existing pitch to the north will become more open for community use. Would that be right?
So that's marked out. In fact, if I think back, there's 3 pitches marked out on the grass. One where the second pitch they plan to build there, and then that other one. That's green space land. That does not belong to the club. They have no exclusive use of those pitches. If the kids want to go and play there on a Saturday morning, then they're perfectly entitled to if they go there first. Then what they're not entitled to happen is for them to be kicked off because the club want to use it. Now, if you're going to put a planning application in for 2 pitches there and you still mark out a third one, and it does mention it in the planning application, if you read it, where it says that there is another pitch outside that could be used, it's not theirs to be used. It's not their sole exclusive use. It's there for the public. It's there for the kids, North Muirton. We were promised extra pitches when the North Inch campus was built, that the community kids could go and use that free of charge. They can't. And it's used up by other people. So we're slowly getting the pitches and places that the local kids can play on taken away. And that's not right.
Sorry, I just want to clarify this at the moment, because with those 2 new pitches in place, the one to the north, which is just a dotted line, that would become more open for community use. Is that right? I'm getting a bit confused with pitches now.
Not really, because they currently use 2, which is that one there at the top and the one where underneath where they're building the next one. So they use those, and they use them during the week as well. But they do mention, and I can't remember the paragraph in the planning application where it does mention that extra pitch outside.
Just one other point, we're talking about parking again, sorry to come back to that. In the condition 11, it does actually say if large crowds are expected, over 100 spectators, there will be access to parking at surrounding schools. I think there's 2 schools very close by, so providing there's a means of guiding people into those spaces, that would presumably alleviate the problem and avoid the contradiction of the church.
As far as I was aware, that currently exists as well. Use local school. It's never been used. People that are trying to go there obviously can't walk the 200 or 300 yards down from the school to go there. But if you've got a midday match, you can't go and park there because the school is open and in use. At the weekend, if the school's not being used, then yes, it can be used. But I can't turn around to you and go, people will park there for every match, because they wouldn't park there for midweek matches because they wouldn't be allowed to.
Billy Hearn, that appears to be the questions. You're now free to go. Can I now call on Ms. McIntosh, North Muirton Community Council, objection to the application? Good morning, Ms. McIntosh. I know that you've arrived a bit late. You've got 5 minutes for your deputation, and I'll start the clock whenever you feel comfortable.
While we welcome the development of the site, we have one major concern. We feel the parking position is drastically inadequate for the proposed expansion. The site currently consists of 1 pitch on match days, are well attended. The training sessions already overwhelm the existing spaces. Nearby residential streets, Butte Drive, May Place, Cameron and Lewis Place already struggle to accommodate the parking overspill. It would therefore be obvious that the proposed additional 16 spaces is well short of the requirements. The proposed stand holds 300 people. If only half of this is used, that's a lot of cars, and the 5 parking spaces are besides the bus standing point Is that not a green space? Somebody can help me. In addition, the site is adjacent to the local access to the road, which also allows emergency vehicles access not only to the football facility, but also the green spaces and the riverside. People walk along there to the river, and people have walk their dogs. Parents take children and the elderly and disabled, because it's a lovely walk along the river. That's the way they go. They have to go round the cars to get there. Inconsiderate parking has been in the past blocked access to this vital infrastructure, and the risk would only be heightened by the additional facility without more parking spaces.
Thank you, Ms. McIntosh. Are you willing to take questions from members? Members, if you could populate the chat function. Councillor Allen.
Thank you for your deputation. I'm not sure if you were here for Councillor Billy Ahern's deputation. I saw you come in late. Most of the things that you just mentioned have been covered and addressed. I just wanted to understand, if they make access for more parking, they would be using up some of the green space. And it seems to me that that is also an objection. So there's no happy medium there, is there?
No, there's not. But then again, there's a lot of likes of the campus have got lots of parking spaces, but people will not use them. They will not walk the length of themselves. They actually walk. They'll sit in their cars up in that embankment and watch their kids playing, and that's where people go up to. And I go up there with my dog as well. And you go around cars, and to me, it's inconsiderate of other people. They're not considering the community of North Newton.
Ms. McIntosh, there appears to be no further questions. You're free to go. Could I call on Mr. Swan? Mr. Swan, you're talking on behalf of your North Newton and you're objecting to application. You've got 5 minutes for your deputation, and whenever you feel comfortable start, I'll start the clock.
Hello, my name is David Swan. I'm here to represent your North Newton. And just to let this committee know, and everybody in the hall, that your North Newton is not against this project at all, as it seems to be portrayed in some of the newspapers. First of all, we've took a long time to build an allotment area in North Newton. Took me about 4 years to get it passed. When it's passed, we finally got it done. So we support the plan. The concerns are that the parking and the amount of cars that affect Greenfield training sessions and matches. I'll say the training sessions are probably worse than the matches, as there's probably about 6 teams training at the same time. So they park up the whole main road. I don't know if you've got the plan. We've not got our plan, but they park up the whole main road and in the roundabout. They park in front of all the allotments. I have spoke to people there before, and I've been abused, threatened. I have also spoken to Greenfield Swift Football Club about this, and the answer I got from them, that is not their problem, as it's a public road, which I totally agree, but as it's all their participants are playing up there and are using the cars, I don't see why the cars have to sit there. All the people are on their phone just waiting the kids finish their training. They could just drop the kids off, go home, come back for the kids. The car park along the main road is very narrow. When you put one car right along the edge of it, if an emergency vehicle was to get from
into there, like into the river, as they do for safety reasons, they wouldn't get past. They would have to push all these cars off the road. They block the access of the doors. We've got a lot of elderly people that has these allotments or raised beds for the purpose for older people to use. So you can imagine somebody disabled trying to carry 3 bags of peat on their shoulder when they can't get up because cars are parked there. I'll hear breathing now. Okay. The plan for the 2 pitches, I'm all in favour of it as the kids are there. I would also like to note that I would say between 80 and 90 people that play in North Newton in these games are not basically from North Newton, which is good for the other part of the town. They tell us tell people to use the North End campus car park, but their owners of the cars will just not do nothing about it. Some days there's over 100 cars between the car park, the roads, allotments, and they also park in the people's car parks. In North Newton at the moment are struggling. Basically, every car park's full with houses. Most cars now have 2 cars. 2 houses have 2 cars. So they're claiming there's 61 spaces, but I took videos, which I'm not allowed to show here, that they were parked up on the green space where they're intending to make the turning point, as that belongs to the green space. And we're also not happy with their boundary plan, as the red boundary plan sees they're owning it right to the end of the main road. Well, that road's public, right into as far as Jeanfield's gravel pitches. So are they going to be building the 2 pitches at once, or are we going to be having to suffer lorries, machinery going in and out here for 2 or 3 years?
Thank you, Mr. Swan. Are you willing to take any questions from members? Members, if you have any questions, please populate the chat. Councillor Brun.
Thanks, Vice Convener. You mentioned training days are worse for parking. You mentioned that training days are worse for parking. How many cars would you estimate there on the training day?
70 to 80, but basically, because it's all youngsters, they don't park in the Janefield car park. They park in the main road. They park up at the allotments. They don't use the car park. Half it's usually empty that time. So that's.
Councillor James.
Sorry, thanks for your presentation. It's I should have asked this earlier, actually. I gather you're probably a resident as well. How would you feel if there was parking restrictions along the road to allow for better access and less parking, but bearing in mind that it would also have a bearing on residents as well? But would that be something that the residents would maybe like to see?
Yes, it would be. That road going into the river as an access road for emergency vehicles only. The residents in North Newton don't park on that road. They'll park up at the square at the top of the road. But we've got signs there saying keep away from the allotments, keep clear. But that doesn't make any difference. I've physically been threatened to get a good thanking from some of the people just for asking them to move their cars.
Mr. Swan, there appears to be Councillor Braun.
Sorry, Vice Convener, it was my fault there. Sorry. Going back to on what Councillor James was just saying about parking restrictions. Would you? I mean, obviously, Butte Drive is one of the places where they park a lot on. I understand. Would that be right? And if that's the case, would you expect, or would you be happy with parking restrictions on Butte Drive to stop that?
It's not Butte Drive they park on, it's the access road into the river they park on, which is just basically a dirt track. It's only a gravel road. We've had companies working in North Newton said they'll repair these things, but it never happens. We had a consultation with Jeanfield Swift when it first started last year in April, promising help and stuff, and we've basically never had any help. We're a self-contained unit in North Newton. We do a lot for the scheme, so we're just looking for a bit of respect into these areas and the park restriction. Nothing to do with the pitches at all.
Mr. Swan, there appears to be no further questions. Thank you for your deputation. You're free to go. And I now call on Mr. Gunyon on behalf of Jeanfield Swiss Community Football Club. Mr. Gunyon is not making a deputation, but is here to take questions from members. So members, if you could populate the chat function. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener, and thanks for coming along to answer questions. I'm sure you'll have heard the deputations already, so based on some of the things I've heard, I'd like to ask you about the reason for 2 pitches. Rather than put words in your mouth, just tell me. Thanks.
Bailey Ahern said there would be 32 teams. We've got Bailey Ahern said we had 32 teams. We've actually got 26, but there's ambitions to grow the football club. Sorry, there's ambitions to grow the football club from 26 teams that we currently have. The 26 teams that we currently have, one pitch would be saturated and we'd still be going out with. So at the moment we spend around about £40,000 a year on other facilities, Bertha Park, North Edge Campus, throughout the winter. And the ambition is to try and bring that in-house. We currently operate around about 60% male, 40% female, and the ambition is to grow 50% male, 50% female, turn ourselves into the biggest community club for females in Scotland. So that's the ambition behind the 2 pitches. The first pitch immediately becomes saturated and we're still travelling out with the train. Okay.
So I'm trying to understand really, it's surface protection rather than having some match after match after match.
Sorry, what was the question there? Sorry.
It's more for surface protection rather than using one pitch all the time. You're trying to...
Yeah, volume and surface protection, essentially. We operate on, in the summer months, we operate on 4 11-a-side grass pitches, 1 9-a-side pitch. And as anybody who knows who plays any sport at all, grass pitches are very, very hard to maintain. And the usage factor there just means that we can only play a game of football once a week on a grass pitch, and maybe twice a week if you're lucky. If anyone knows the particular area, it suffers from sandy clay soils, good drainage, but it gets a bit undulating, so it tears up very, very quickly. So the 3G all-weather pitches allow us to take our current on activities and condense them from 4 11-a-side pitches, 1 9-a-side pitch, down to 2 pitches. So it's trying to bring all our activities into one area, spread that out, so you're operating through 6 till 10 PM, for argument's sake, as the core hours, rather than try to condense that into summer months and then the winter months travel far and wide to get training facilities.
And my second question is based on one of the questions as well. How long is it going to take you to build and finish your project?
First phase, so there's going to be phases to this, and we've got funding in place right now. A pitch will take anywhere between 16 to 20 weeks. So the intention is to do the the first pitch in this summer, if possible. The second pitch next summer. So it's all centred around funding. We've got funding in place, 1.2 million there or thereabouts. And the SFA are looking to fund the second phase of this in the next DCMS funding round, which was just kicked in. So all in, the ambition is to turn it all around in 24 months.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks very much, Convener. Thank you for your deputation. Thank you for being here to answer questions. Two big points were raised by objectors. If I take one first of all, this is community use. Seems to be a lot of concern about how local people, local children, put it that way, can use these pitches. Now you've got the two in. That one to the north, which is on the map, is on green space land, understand. So will that, once you've got your two pitches in, will that effectively open for kids to use as and when they want, and you won't be involved in controlling who uses it?
Yes, in short, the red line boundary is all the area that we're looking to take under our activities. The pitch to the north of that was just indicative to show what a football pitch size could fit into there. It already is there. And we currently maintain that, put the goals up, white line it, cut it, etc. But going forward, that full area has nothing to do with the Jeanfield Swifts Community Football Club anymore. It's entirely community use. What we've said in our submission to planning as part of our submission to SFA is we're willing to work with the community and help maintain that pitch on behalf of anyone who wants to use it, but we have no intention to use anything out with the red line boundary.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Thanks for your want to answer some questions. One of the issues you probably heard about there was to do with parking. I know it's obviously one of the main concerns of the objectors. I wondered generally if you could answer that, but particularly as regards the number of cars that you've put in and some kind of management plan for what happens, because I can well believe there are incidents, and if you're wanting to expand, this is something you'll need to be good neighbours with the local community. So I'm just wanting to understand how you're intending and managing that. Thanks.
Yeah, fully on take on board everybody's points that were made regarding parking. These aren't new discussions to us. We've been ongoing for quite a number of years, probably since Councillor Hearn and I first met. I was a player and a manager at the time for the football team. Now I'm on the charity. The increase in parking has gone up. So our current parking facility was put in circa 2008, 2009, and it was contained around one football team and one main football team, sorry, and maybe 4 or 5 community teams. And as part of the move to North Muirton at that time, the plan was the Jeanfield were tasked with growing the community football club. So money that Jeanfield got from sale of their old land went into building this facility in conjunction with Perth and Kinross Council, and our leasehold centres around half that car park and that first pitch, the existing pitch that's there essentially at this moment in time. So in talking to PKC, what we've asked is we could extend that leasehold to the full car park. The area in the red line boundary, it's actually not the full red line boundary. The leasehold position is slightly less than that. So it's where the car park stops and the 2 pitches. And in doing so, we're trying to increase the parking. So as everybody said, we're limited in what we can do with the space that we have in terms of providing parking, trying not to encroach onto green space. The turning circle in question there, I wasn't aware it was green space. I think we've also talked about that in the leasehold to PKC, and they in turn have been in touch with Scottish Minister, so I didn't think there was any objection to that. But in terms of parking, that's probably in the limit to where we can get to with the space that we're going to take under our leasehold. The area at the bottom of the pitch that Councillor Hearn alluded to, we had a really good positive discussion with the Roads and Transport Department about encroaching into that area to try and maximise more parking. But I think one of the councillors in the committee here today alluded to the fact that there is tree root protection in that area. So physically taking it any further encroaches into areas where large tall trees that separate us between ourselves and the golf course prevent us from going any further down there. Really kind of switched on planning consultant called Malcolm Clapperton, who's worked on a lot of these projects. So we've had tree surveys done, ecological surveys, ground investigations. In terms of our leasehold, that's what we believe is the absolute maximum we can get on there, to the point that the bus turning circle that's referred to there for 90% of the time will be parking as well. Over and above that, we do have a traffic management plan in place at this moment in time. When there's busy match days, there's communications go out on social media, on Facebook, and to away travelling teams that come to visit us who are not familiar with the area. We do pay Mighty to rent Perth Grammar School's car park. We have done on quite a number of occasions when we know it's going to be a particularly busy day. This is match days. And thereafter, we try and manage the training nights around that. I take on board again the points that some training nights, particularly the summer months, get particularly busy. Mainly around about this time of year, when you're trying to condense activities from, let's say, 6 at night till 8:30 when you've got light. We don't have floodlighting in the surrounding areas. So what you try to do, or what a lot of people try to do, is condense the number of activities, the number of teams into a smaller time zone. And bringing everybody into these 2 pitches, I think that's going to alleviate it, or certainly from our planning discussion, we think it'll alleviate it, because we're not trying to condense areas till 8 o'clock at night. We've got till 10 o'clock at night. So we can manage the traffic a lot more. We can manage the players and the coaches a lot more. And we're taking time from, let's say it's 6 at night, which are core hours, which our timetables suggest, till 10 at night, and we're spreading that out Monday to Friday, then into Saturday, then into Sunday, rather than trying to condense, let's say, those core hours into the light, what we're restricted to by daylight. So yeah, to finish off on that, I take on board the traffic points. A traffic management plan is absolutely necessary, an improved one as well, given the fact that we've now got the allotment in play. We have one in place at this moment in time to manage these proposals. What I think we need to do going forward here, and I heard the point that Mr. Swan made about parking restrictions, I can fully agree with that. I think that Genefield Swifts can do so much with the land that we are in control of. Out with that, support would be fantastic from PKC to look at parking restrictions on the road in, the road up to the allotment, which we're more than happy to play a part in. And then if there's any more felt on Butte Drive or May Place, where some of the other congested areas have been mentioned, happy to support that as well, and we'd be in favour of that.
Councillor Illingworth.
Okay, thank you. Can you give us an overall, a few sentences on the match day traffic management plans?
So, particularly busy day. If it was this Saturday coming, and what we tend to do there is we'd look at the fixture. We know from historic data roughly how many people travel to these games. The average crowd at a Genefield Swifts match is around about 120 to 130 people. That's a Genefield Swifts, what was the old junior football. What also might happen on that day, as some of the councillors alluded to, you might have an amateur football match on at the same time, in which case their spectator crowds might be 30 to 40. It's not huge. So we could be talking about 200 spectators, plus players, plus coaches, officials. On those occasions where we think that parking is going to extend beyond what we can cope with on our site, what we do is we put out some comms to the away travelling team and say, could you please drop off your bus, drop off your players and park your bus in an area that might be Perth Grammar School. If we've had a chat with them regarding taking on the car park for that day, I think it costs about £60 or £70 to open up the car park for the day. Or we'll look at some alternative means, whether that be active travel, whatever it may be. So there'll be comms that's out on Twitter, X as it's now called, Facebook, and any of our other social media channels that will say, fairly busy game today, please endeavour to use active travel to park up at Perth Grammar School or park in some of the other neighbouring facilities. What we'll do as a football club is we'll put barriers out and they'll control access into the car park, which would be that 63 space area that's in there at this moment in time. So only cars that are travelling, so players, officials, anyone with disabilities would get to park in there. And then once they're all in, we'd then pull those cones back and then that would become parking to. Then what we do is we'd have a traffic warden. Our first team chairman, Derek Matheson, has done that on a number of occasions. Ian Morrison, who's also our vice president, would do that on a number of occasions. They'll wear a high-vis vest or a Genefield Swifts logo on their badge, and they'll invite people to park in the areas that are our car park and try and encourage them not to park out on the road. Mr. Swan kind of said as well that we can't enforce it, and I don't think anyone wants to get into confrontation, being open and honest about it. So all we can do is ask that people don't park in these areas, but we have no way of enforcing that, which is where we'd love that support from PKC if it was possible. But yeah, that's the traffic management plan in place at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Bailey McLaren.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to follow up on a couple of comments that Councillor Hearn made in his deputation about consultation, with the initial consultation with the community. And there's a feeling that what was promised or alluded to being promised has not come to fruition. From these deputations from Councillor Hearn and the other two, it's clear that the community, you need the community behind you here. And I'm getting a feeling that they're not really there. And, a community cohesion for this is vital. And we are all supportive of this sports growth. We have it throughout all our council wards, but you've got to get on top of having the community with you, show them respect. So can you please just give me a bit more detail on what Councillor Hearn has said there about what was promised and what they feel hasn't been met?
I can't obviously attest to what Councillor Hearn thinks was promised. There was no promises made at any consultations. What we said is we would take on board comments as a consultation, hear everybody's thoughts, objections. Parking was at the top of those objections. And we chatted through what was within what we could possibly do with the land that we have, the money that we have, and try and improve that. So at this moment in time, there is a problem with parking, a historic problem. We think we're managing it particularly well. The councillor, Bailey Hearn, there has been vocal in terms of what he's seen, not in a derogatory way. He's been very vocal with us in terms of expressing people's objections to some of the parking issues. As I alluded to there, we're in control of so much. We can encourage people to park as sensibly as possible, and we can encourage people to not to park in certain areas, and we try and do that. There has been, I don't think there's been, how best to put this, I don't think there's been any friction out with parking. I think there's a general consensus that in the community we live in and we operate in, we got on very well. We put a paid employee into Jeanfield Swifts over the last 2 years. We deal with community activities that are reaching far beyond just North Muirton, but into Perth in total. We do an asylum seeker league. We have women's walking football. We're now putting a disability football programme in place. We're doing employability programmes. So we think that what we do goes far beyond football. And I get it, this is 2 football pitches. For us, as a club and as a charity, it's about what football can give back as well. So we are very, very aware that North Muirton, our community, your North Muirton and the North Muirton Community Council, we all need to get on. I think we do get on incredibly well with most, if not majority, certainly the majority of everybody in North Muirton. And I think the objections, hopefully they're not, I think what I've read here, and forgive me if I'm summarising what other people are thinking here. Yes, there's objections or there's concerns. I don't think there's a general objection to what we're trying to do here. I think there's concerns about how we're going to achieve it. And we are more than willing, not just in efforts and in words, but in terms of financial contribution, we've put in excess of £300,000 of our own money to put this forward, not just grant funding, not just loan funding. We are well aware of what we have to do and what we need to spend money on, and to try and make sure that this is something that everybody can be proud of. We talked about timetables in terms of what Bailey Hearn alluded to was tacit kind of promises regarding community use. Not tacit, it's in our timetable. Anybody can go and read it. It's a business plan that's on our website. Minimum 1 hour a day will be free community use after schools. So that's in there, and the SFA have it as a condition as well with us that we have to put in 1.5 hours a week. We've extended that to a minimum of 5 hours a week. In all honesty, it will be more than that. So, yeah, to summarise, fully aware that we need to get on with everybody here. I don't think we don't get on. I think we have some discussions. Some of them are tough discussions, but we are more than willing to hear what everybody's got to say and try and work with everybody.
Thank you.
Councillor Allen.
Success, building is tough, and recognising that's also tough. and you've addressed many of the questions today. And I think by and large, your success is great, and I don't think anybody in the community is against that. I think even from the objectors, they didn't have any objection to what you're trying to achieve. The big objector is the parking issue. And I take issue with people who live locally and have to take abuse from people who are maybe parking wrongly and somebody challenges that. So my question is, have you given any thought to stewardship? And you mentioned one of your people maybe puts on a yellow jacket, but what about volunteer stewards who can actually look after that for you on a match day?
So I'd mentioned two individuals in particular there. Yeah, we have more than just two individuals. We've got, at last count, 110 volunteers that operate within our club. We have to make sure that those objections or those what abuse was levied doesn't happen. Again, insofar as we can only do what we're in control of, but we can try and control as much as we possibly can. So I absolutely agree. We should have our traffic management plan. We'll have wardens, we'll have cones, we'll have people out there trying to monitor what's going on. We've got a kind of code of conduct within our club. So if it's people within our club who have made those comments, I would more than welcome that anyone who's received comments such as that to tell us who that might be. They'll be ejected from the club. That's the code of conduct. We operate a no tolerance policy when it comes to any sort of abuse, whatsoever. So if it's a player, a mother, a father, a coach, a volunteer, they're not welcome in the club if that's the way they conduct themselves, to the point that we've got evidence of removing people from the club. Sorry. But yeah, that certainly shouldn't happen. Sorry for that happening. And if it does happen, what we'd like to know about it, so we can try and do something about it. Hard to stop something that you don't know is going to happen. But if we know something's happened, what we can do is take the relevant action.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Vice Convener. As you probably guessed, it's another question about parking. We had in our papers here that there was access to the church car park, which we've now been told isn't there. So that's obviously thrown the plans out, the number of spaces you've got. On the information I've got here, you've got up to a maximum of 79 now. Is that going to throw your plans out a little bit? Because obviously the parking issue is a big point. I think you said there aren't objections, there's more concerns rather than objections to this.
So the church is mentioned as part of a wider parking solution. As you can see from our plans and our planning application, it doesn't form part of our planning application. So we know it's not in our gift. It wasn't part of our original scope, and it wasn't part of our original discussions as a firm parking space allocation with roads and transport. Hence the reason that the overflow went in. So what we've been using the church car park with a verbal agreement with the church previously is an overflow car park on match days. That posed some challenges if that match day was a Sunday for obvious reasons. So what we had to then do is look at formalising that. As Councillor Ahern noted there from the Reverend, we've got a meeting on the 20th to discuss making that a formal arrangement. There is no formal arrangement right yet. They're 100% right, but there is no reason. Oh, sorry, it's not been a no. It's been a let's discuss this. And the only reason it's not been a yes so far or a no so far is it has to go to essentially as bosses to discuss that being a formal agreement. It's not part of our planning application. It is mentioned in the application with regards to overflow parking and potential provision that we could make subject to agreements. The obvious agreement that we can make, a paid agreement, is with Perth Grammar School, and we've done that. Again, happy to evidence that. We've done that on a number of occasions when we've had busy match days.
I have a question. You mentioned in your earlier on about active travel. How do you promote active travel? Because you've got a major Route 77 that runs past the stadium, and that travels north-south. You've got quite good bus connectivity, so people encouraging walking. Could you now expand on that, please? So
since the active travel route was installed, and particularly the cycle path was installed with bike shelters, we've actively promoted that on our social media channels. We've encouraged anyone travelling from Perth. So as an example, if a team was travelling from, let's say, Linlithgow Rose, a football club from Linlithgow, obviously, we're travelling up, we would encourage them on a busy match day for their away supporters who are not going to use active travel, they're going to use cars and buses, we'd encourage them to park at the Perth Grammar School area. We can control that, we can direct it, and they don't know any better about parking in the local area. So we encourage them to park there. That, if that was 40 to 50 cars potentially. Anyone travelling from the Perth area, we would encourage them to use active travel. So what we've seen more often, not more often, in the better weather months, what we're seeing now is people parking in town or going into town with the bus, maybe going for something to eat, and then taking a walk along the river, cycle along the river, or getting on a bus to join us. It's been something we've been actively trying to promote since we've had the cycle routes in there, and we ask people wherever possible to walk, to cycle, or to use public transport. So again, it'll be evidence across our social media channels. We have, believe it or not, quite a lot of people within the club. Of the 26 teams, circa 450 people, I think we've got around about 56% of our club what you class as within a 15 to 20 minute walk from the club. So that would be Tulloch, that would be North Muirton, or the town. So that's what we always try and do, is wherever possible, travel using bikes, buses, walking, wherever possible.
I have a further question about when you were answering one of the members. You mentioned about consolidation of your stadium, and in a previous question you answered that you're trying to develop participation from girls and women. The development of this site, is that seen that might help encourage girls and women to participate, as in they're not travelling around? You mentioned something about other sites. So are you thinking about facilities, and young people like to bond with an area and feel comfortable with an area and the facilities? Could you maybe expand on that, please?
So as you alluded to there, our ambition is to go from our current membership, which is circa 60% male, 40% female, to 50-50. I think we'd be the only club in Scotland that have that kind of ratio. What we have at the moment is, I mentioned these facilities were built in 2008. There's a main grass pitch set of changing rooms, a home and away pitch that the senior teams would use, and then we've got 8 general use changing rooms. In growing our female side of the game, what we've realised is they are not fit for purpose anymore. So part of the plans is to reconfigure our existing changing rooms. There's talks ongoing with PKC over us adopting, they're currently maintained by PKC, but we will be adopting those as part of the leasehold plans. And sending our teams out with, so Bertha Park as an example, if we train there on a Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, we don't get access to the changing rooms. So everybody has to turn up ready. If you're a female, you would know how challenging that can be, just to turn up ready, not have access to other facilities, not feel comfortable going to get a shower or whatever may need. We are going to tackle that essentially. We all have female dedicated facilities, probably unlike anything in Scotland. I think Glasgow City Football Club, Rangers and Celtic have plans in place, but nothing firm. Our intention is to turn this into a dedicated female-friendly changing facility and place to essentially come and feel safe. That's the ambition here. If you walk around any other similar type facility, and certainly Perth, I can't think of any other main ones in Scotland, maybe short of Oriam. I don't think any other facility will have what we have, and it's primarily focused around our female contingent.
Sir Gunyon, there appears to be no further questions. You'll be glad to know. Thank you for taking the time. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations on this application. I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members if they've got any questions for officers? They come in quick. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. I've got a few, but I'll bring in as I go along. But the first one was Mr. Panton. Bailey Hearn, I think, raised the point about using the PA system is for announcements only, and he said there's a possibility we use the music. I mean, that's there's a condition in here, presumably that any abuse of that would be enforceable. We'd enforce that if there are any complaints that come in on that. Would that be right? That was me. That was me.
You're on, Councillor Braun. Yeah, so you're absolutely correct. There is a condition recommended, and that's condition 5. So because there is a condition recommended, that would be applied to the consent if agreed today. And if they breach that by playing music, we could then intervene with formal enforcement action. So we would act in line with the Charter, which says first and foremost, we would approach them informally and say, well, it's been brought to our attention, you're doing music, stop it, please. If they didn't adhere to that and did it again, we would then intervene with more formal action. So because there's a condition there, we could take a robust enforcement action should they breach it.
Councillor Braun. Oh no, that's you, Ronald. Councillor James.
Thanks, convener. You're having a good day like me. My question is for Mr. Panton. I'm sure he would be expecting it. And it's with regards to the parking and the reasons why we can't put parking where some of the objectors have been asking. Am I right in thinking, Sean, that the tree line area that they've said we could extend into, we can't because of the tree roots? And can I also ask if the turning area could be used as additional parking on occasions when it is busy? And just finishing up on that, if we were to refuse this application, would all of those problems suddenly disappear, or would they still remain? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor James, and fair questions there. So the first question about the tree protection areas, so you're correct, and Mr. Gunyon raised this within his deputation as well. So that area to the south of the pitches that was suggested for parking, yes, on plan form it looks like there's plenty of space there and you could get a road in, but that is within the root protection areas of those big trees that bounded the site with the North Inch Golf Course. So what that would mean if we put parking there was the roots would be weakened, which could be destructive during a storm event because the roots wouldn't be strong there. So we would essentially lose those trees should we get parking in there. So obviously trees are good for two reasons, one being biodiversity and two being visual amenity and helping to screen the development. So we certainly wouldn't be encouraging any spaces along that strip. Like say on plan form, it looks like you could get it in there, but in reality it would be detrimental towards those trees which we would prefer to keep. Another point I would point out is just from a flooding point of view. Obviously, we heard within deputation as well, the site drains quite well just now. The more land we take up with hard surfacing in that area, then the better the drainage for the rest of the site gets. So we don't want to be compromising drainage by having too much hard standing there for parking. Now, your second point about the turning areas, as you'll have seen in the papers, that's proposed as a kind of drop-off area for buses and a turning area. Now, it is the plan that if there is an event where there are no buses, that can be used for additional parking. So you were correct there, Councillor James, that can essentially act as an overflow as well, but that's only when there aren't buses present. And your third question, I'm afraid you're going to have to remind me because I've waffled on a bit, but if you could, should the problem go away? Of course. So yes, as we've heard today, there are existing issues with Genefield Swifts when it's match day, and that's the way it currently is just now, and that will remain whether this application is refused or not, because that's what's there today. Now, this application actually provides us an opportunity to improve it because there are car park enhancements, and also we're putting on conditional control about match day spectators and what they're going to do control that. That condition doesn't currently exist on the site. So I would actually argue that this could result in betterment to the parking arrangements. And as we've heard from Genefield Swift today, they're more than willing to cooperate with us. They can use Perth Grammar School. And I would point out Perth Grammar School is only 300 metres away. We're not talking that this is really far away, it's 300 metres. And they have been using Perth Grammar to date. So in answer to your question, Councillor James, I would say that this could actually result in betterment because of the conditions that we're looking to impose.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener. I think Mr. Panton went some way to answering my question there, and it's with regards to the fact that currently there is no condition. Condition 11, it does have a few things in there that are very helpful. I just wonder if we can make that a bit more robust and include something along the lines of stewarding on match days.
That would be competent to add that as an extra point. So one thing I would point out just from some of the objectives received, so the first bullet point for condition 7 points out how access to the allotments on the Riverside access track will be maintained. So they would have to submit a document to us showing how that would be maintained and what they're going to do if somebody parks there. That currently doesn't exist. So turning to the allotments, that condition will give the enforcement team the teeth should there be an issue there. But if you did feel it was necessary, it would be competent to add an additional point on there to say something along the lines of, if a crowd of over 100 spectators are in place, a steward or 2 stewards, whatever you think necessary, must be in place. So you could add that competently should you consider it necessary.
All right. Sorry, I think, that is inherent and that was the expectation within the condition. So it's not to say that we weren't expecting that there would be stewarding or anything proposed by the traffic management plan. We've just not included every single element that we would want to see within that. We would want to see stewarding undertaken. So I think the third bullet in that condition, we would expect to see commentary on stewarding arrangements. It's quite clear to me, listening to the discussion today and seeing the papers previously and all the comments made, that a large element of the issue is people not adhering to what they should be doing, and greater management or stewarding of that, I think, might go a long way towards dealing with many of the issues we've heard about today.
Yep, thank you for that, and I'm encouraged to hear that. I did make the point to Jean Phil Swifts that success is going to bring them many, many problems. And one will be the increase of traffic and its people. But my biggest concern was from the objector, who suggested that they were subject to abuse. And when we've got somebody with a yellow jacket representing the club taking care of those issues rather than a member of the public, it makes things far more controllable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Convener. I think Councillor Anna's asked the first question I was going to come forward with. But the other point is, and I think there's going to be limitations on this, Mr. Panton, and that is this question of community use. My understanding is that with the new pitch in place, the pitch to the north will be open then for community use. We can't obviously condition anything on that because it's out with the application, but is there any control we would have over the new pitch at all for community use, or is that just something that's down to the club to sort out with the members of the public? I appreciate there's limitations of what we can do on these things.
Well, the first thing would be that the planning application only relates to the area included in red. My understanding is that the lease to the club, and again, this might have been a question for the previous deputy, but my understanding is that the lease currently covers the area of the existing enclosed pitch, clubhouse, and perhaps some of the car parking. There's currently arrangements ongoing to increase the size of a new lease to include that second area, but the areas that are currently grass pitches are not under the control of the club. I think as well the club representative indicated that they, as a matter of goodwill, but also for their own purposes, maintain line, etc., put posts up for the pitch, but it is open to anyone, I suppose, to use that, although the club do use it from time to time. There's no change in the arrangements for the areas that would be out with the red line area. That would be land available for use by whomever, and it would be up to the club to decide, perhaps in discussion with the council, as to whether or not they wish to continue to maintain that area, line it and put posts up, even although, as I think they indicated, that they will not be using any of that area going forward. So I think, the community and the club perhaps need to maintain good relations for both parties' benefits because I suppose it would be open to the club to say, well, we're having nothing to do with that area going forward. It can just become unlined, unposted and unmaintained, and that would then fall to the council to decide what then happened thereafter. But there's no restriction on who can access those areas out with the leased area. I do, again, would probably say that it might have been better to ask the previous deputy, but from the information in front of us, it is indicated that there will be times when the community can access the new pitch, which I would say is on the site of an existing pitch, although slight different orientations. But again, the detail of that might have been better put to the club representative.
Sorry, just come in, Councillor Braun, as well. Just to point out and remind members that just to the south of that plan in front of you, so kind of to the south of Riverside Church and between Perth Grammar School, there is another pitch there that's available for public use that isn't fenced off. So you have that pitch to the north and also an additional pitch that's just right to the south of Riverside Church between there and Perth Grammar School, which is only about 100 metres away. So there's another pitch right there as well.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Then can I ask for a motion? Motion's come in from Councillor Allen.
Thank you, convener. My motion is to approve, but with a more robust condition at number 11 to include stewarding, if that is competent. Thank you.
Thank you. And seconder? Councillor Illingworth?
Councillor Illingworth, I think. Convener, yes, I'm very happy to second. This is a fantastic club. This is a great development for Perth and for the city and the community, and developing people within that community. I know there are issues about parking. I think there's going to be a really robust match day management plans for parking, so I'm happy to second.
Thank you. Can I ask if there's any amendment? No amendment. Do committee have any comment on the report? Councillor James.
Yes, sorry, convener. As a parent who spent hours and hours on the side of a cold pitch on a Sunday with my kids, I think this is a great programme. We complain that there's nothing for the kids to do, or the kids complain there's nothing to do. It's a club that's actually succeeding, providing a fantastic facility, and I think the stand in between the two pitches is genius, because it never stops raining. So great to see this come forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor James. I fully agree with you. Councillor Braun.
Yeah, thanks very much, Convener. Yes, I concur with what Councillor James has said. It's something that's very useful. It came across, I think, with everybody that spoke, there was very little objection. It was mainly serious concerns. And I think Councillor Allen's put forward a motion. My only query was, he mentioned obviously extra stewardship. Should we mention a number, or is the simple fact that there's a bullet point that says additional stewardship enough?
I would suggest no number and just say, as part of the plan, you should include stewards, and then we can look at proportionality from there on.
Yeah, thank you, convener. Just to say that when you get into stewarding, if you get too formal, it gets complicated because you're then referring to the HSE Purple Guide, and we don't want to go too far that direction. So I think really it may be an amendment in the third point of just saying including stewarding, if that would be satisfactory. Yeah.
Okay then, no further comment. No, therefore planning permission is granted with the inclusion of the extra part of condition 11. Thank you. We'll now take a 10-minute break. Is that okay for everyone? Okay, folks, thank you. Welcome back. We move swiftly on to 5.2, which are local applications. And the first local application is for the siting of a residential caravan for a temporary period in retrospect at land 250 metres north of the farmhouse, East Muirhead Farm, Blair and Gone, Dollar. And to introduce the report is Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Convener. As you know, the first local application up for consideration today relates to the siting of a temporary caravan on land to the north of Muirhead Stables near Blair and Gone. This application is before members today in light of the receipt of 7 letters of representation, including one from the Fossaway Community Council. The reasons for the objections are set out in paragraph 35 of the report, but principally relate to the principle of development, water and drainage, noise and impacts on the character of the area. The general principle of the applicant's wider rural business interest was granted through permission in 2024. With the livery business, dog grooming and walking, and more recently horse breeding, the applicant has submitted a case to seek to justify the retention of a temporary caravan that has been brought onto site. Additional information in the form of a business plan and supporting information from a local vet has led officers to consider the retention of the caravan would be permissible to the end of March 2028. This would allow the applicant the opportunity to demonstrate whether a permanent dwelling might be viable, although it is unlikely to be on the same site as the caravan from a general placemaking perspective. I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. Here we can see the location of the site, approximately 1.6 kilometres due south of Blair and Gone, located close to the junction of the U213 and U217. The site is also located a short distance north of Muirhead Farm and Stables, which is a separate equestrian business. Next slide, please. Here we can see an enhanced aerial image, which shows the site in more detail. This illustrates the lengthy access track up from the U213 over a slight crest to where the stables and caravan are sited, adjacent to a recently felled commercial woodland, Damwood. Next slide, please. We now have the site plan, which shows the stables on the left in an L-shaped arrangement, with the caravan to the eastern edge. The existing generator is located beyond that in the northeast corner of the site. Next slide, please. We now have some annotated pictures which set out the dimensions of the caravan, which is 10.5 metres in length, 3.6 metres wide and 3.55 metres to ridge from ground level. Next slide, please. We now move on to a series of recent photographs taken by the case officer. On the left is the view southwards from around halfway up the access track, while to the right is the view northwards from the same position, looking towards the stables and caravan. Next slide, please. This next photograph shows the grouping of buildings at the stable site in much more detail. It also gives a better impression of how the site sits in a small hollow beyond the crest in the access track and is relatively well contained in the local landscape. Next slide, please. And these final images show the view at the south part of the access track with the profile of the closest house, the farmhouse, and Eastern Muirhead Farm on the top left, which is around 200 metres south of the caravan. Top right shows a closer view of the caravan. Bottom left shows the stables, while bottom right shows the now enclosed generator. Next slide, please. Thank you, Convener. That now concludes my presentation, and I leave you with the site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. We do have deputations on this item, so I'll now hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputation procedure.
Thank you, Convener. Can I call Ms. Humphreys, objector to the application? Good morning. Sorry, but no, we've got members online and they won't have access to the information. Okay, that's okay. Okay, I think you know the procedure. Whenever you're ready to start, I'll start the clock.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to object to the planning application that's been submitted. This is a retrospective application for development that has already taken place, including the site and occupation of a static caravan that does not meet acceptable criteria. A very similar proposal has previously been refused, and there's been no meaningful change to address those reasons. Approving this application would undermine the confidence in the consistency of the planning process and risk setting a precedent that development can proceed first with permission sought later. The application is presented as being linked to an equestrian use. However, there's no clear evidence business need for someone to live on site. The level of activity appears limited to the applicant's own 5 horses and does not reflect a commercial operation of sufficient scale to justify new dwelling in the countryside. The later addition of a dog grooming and walk-in business raises further concerns, particularly regarding noise, disturbance, and increased traffic on rural roads. This element was not included in the original application, meaning that local residents have not had a proper opportunity to comment on it. There is a lack of clarity on how these businesses would operate. It is suggested that dogs may be kept on site overnight, yet there is no clear provision for appropriate facilities. At the same time, it is stated that the grooming business would operate from a mobile unit, which has not been roadworthy since December 2024. These inconsistencies raise questions as to whether the proposal has been fully considered or is realistically deliverable. In terms of sustainability, there's no clear evidence that the site can provide a reliable energy supply. Given the distance from mains electricity, reliance appears to be placed on solar generation. There is no clear indication that this would meet the demands of a residential unit alongside equestrian and dog-related uses, particularly in winter months. Generator use and associated noise and environmental impact still remains a concern. Water supply is also of a significant concern. The site is known to have constraints, and the cumulative demands of the proposed uses would place further pressure on the limited resource. There's also evidence of issues with water infrastructure on site, raising doubts about its ability to sustainably support the development. Animal welfare is cited as a justification for on-site presence. However, there are concerns that the current management of the site does not support this argument. Issues have been observed relating to the availability of water, site condition, and the presence of debris that could pose risks to animal safety. These factors all call into question whether an on-site presence alone would ensure appropriate standards of care. There are also concerns regarding the impact on neighbouring livestock, particularly given the proximity of dogs on site, reports of dogs being loose in surrounding fields, and a police incident that led to the significant distress and the lameness of my own horse. More broadly, the condition and management of the site raises concerns in terms of visual impact, waste management, and residential amenity. In particular, there appears to be no clear or appropriate provision for the handling of manure, stable waste, or human waste, which raises further concerns about the site's suitability. A muck heap is present, despite the applicant having indicated in previous applications that she would remove muck on a daily basis, as other neighbours do. And biosecurity has also not been addressed within the application, which is a significant omission for any equestrian-related use, particularly given the risk posed by infectious diseases and the need for appropriate isolation and management measures. I would also ask the committee to consider the reliance on planning conditions, given the retrospective nature of the development and the history of unauthorised works on site, including over high-pressure gas pipelines. There must be doubt as to whether such conditions would be complied with or effectively enforced. Finally, there are procedural concerns regarding land ownership. The application appears to incorrectly include land within the red boundary that is not the applicant's ownership. This raises questions as to whether the application has been submitted in accordance with the required regulations and whether proper notifications have been given and as such are in breach of Section 15 of the Development Management Regulations 2013. In summary, this proposal represents an unjustified and unsustainable form of development in the countryside, with no clear operational need to support it. It is a retrospective application that fails to address previous reasons for refusal and introduces additional concerns. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that the application be refused.
Thank you, Ms Humphreys. Are you happy to take questions from members? Members, if you could populate the chat function. Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Thank you for your deputation. Just want to clarify this question of water on all the surrounding houses have. We talk about private supply. Is this a private supply that comes from an underground source, a borehole, or whatever, or is it some sort of private network that feeds off the actual mains?
I think what you've said latterly is what we have in the area. It's a private pipe that feeds in a number of houses in the area along probably a mile, possibly a mile and a half length, which is just inadequate for what we have already. Well, I think you've probably seen in some of the objections that have been placed already online, and there's significant water pressure issues. My house has 4 bathrooms. It just as well have one, because we can only use one shower at a time. Nobody can shower when somebody's flushing the toilet. We have to all shout to each other and say, we're just popping in the shower. Nobody put anything on. My washing machine frequently won't work because there's not sufficient pressure of water coming through. And I know my neighbours also have issues with regards to, one neighbour can't shower properly. She has to fill a bath. It takes about an hour just to be able to wash her hair. My other neighbour can't use the washing machine on occasion, and the dishwasher is also a problem for her. So it's something that has been stretched beyond the capacity it was initially intended for.
So the point is the pipe you're talking about, it feeds off the actual Scottish Water mains. Is that correct?
I think so. I mean, it's unclear, is what but it seems to be that's probably the most likely scenario, that it is from the Scottish Water mains. It's definitely not a borehole.
Ms. Humphreys, there appears to be no further questions. You're free to go. Can I call on Ms. Anderson, the applicant? Morning, Ms. Anderson. I'm sure you're aware of the procedure. Whenever you're feeling happy to start, I'll start the clock.
So I did have something prepared, but I would actually prefer now just to take questions, if you want to go for that instead, because I obviously have heard what Ms. Humphreys wanted to talk about, and I would love for you guys just to shoot away with the questions so we can see where I can go with that.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. If members would like to populate the chat function, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Thank you for just volunteering to ask questions. The first question I had was the comments related to waste disposal of a variety of natures. I just wonder if you could comment on what your plans are for that. Thanks.
That us? So, yeah, can you hear me? Is that better? So with regards to waste disposal, there is a septic tank that we use for the caravan. And also we have a muck heap that we're using. Basically, we only put dung in it. So, and we did have straw in one of our stables, but from now on we only use shavings, basically. So that degrades itself. So it basically over time just disappears. You can use it for to feed the plants and stuff like that. So basically going forward, we're not using anything that will be on site for any length of time. And hope we're just going to use biodegradable things.
Sorry, Alan.
Hiya, thanks for coming along. Just going to ask you the question so that you can address it as you suggested you would. Why do we need a caravan on site?
I need a caravan on site because, sorry. I need a caravan on site because basically when I first got the land, I had my horses, which are now livery horses as well. I also did a bit of breeding, and that's been going on since the beginning. So I had to be there for obviously looking after the horses, the babies. I did a huge big thing online for you to have a look at as well. I don't know if you've seen it at all. I'm quite nervous, so I'm struggling to think about stuff when I'm actually saying it to you. But the fences need to be checked all the time. The water needs to be checked all the time. They need hay. They need fed about depending whether they're in or out in the field, they need fed like 3 times a day, water 3 times a day, need to be up there first thing in the morning, last thing at night. Obviously when you're breeding, you're looking after foals all through the night, looking after mares if anything goes wrong. Horses get colic and things like that. They have to be able to have a vet on site. You know, if anything goes wrong, it has to be like right there and then for horses to kind of recover quick enough. With me doing the dog walking and the dog grooming, the dog grooming van is actually on the site as well, but like Miss Humphrey said, it's not moved for a while. It's not got an MOT at the moment because I've not been using it over the winter because I've just been doing the dog walking because we've had that much work on, like putting solar panels in, putting septic tanks in, putting just everything, like building, like everything that we've had to like do. I've just been concentrating on the dog walking. We don't do dog boarding or anything like that. The only dogs that are on site are Malin dogs. So we don't do like overnight stays for dogs or anything like that. So I go to work, I do the horses, I go to my work, come back. You know, I wouldn't be able to do all of this if it wasn't for being on site. I couldn't fit it all in because it's just myself. And I've got quite a lot of horses to look after and quite a lot of dogs to walk. Yeah.
So thank you for that, quite comprehensive as an answer. However, I'm trying to understand, you're suggesting you need your on-site caravan so that you're there all the time for horses, and then you're telling me that you go away and do dog walking. So I'm trying to understand the balance there.
Partner's usually on site when I'm not there, so he can look after when I'm not there, but he's not as experienced. He doesn't really have any knowledge about horses, so he's basically just keeping an eye on everything.
Councillor Brun.
Thanks for asking me. Thank you for your deputation. I'll answer a question. Sorry, somebody else doing this now. I'm going to show my ignorance a little bit here, but could you just outline what business you do? I mean, are we talking about equestrian centre or livery stables? Maybe that's the same thing. I don't know. I mean, I have no real knowledge of horses except what I see in a Western. So, you know, can you just outline what your business is? And I know it was mentioned about you've talked about dog walking, and one of the objector raised the point about dogs being loose. So you just comment on that as well, please.
So as an equestrian business, I was doing breeding. We probably will put horses back into foal this year as well. I'm looking in the future to expand slightly and possibly get an arena and do lessons, maybe riding for the disabled. I'm quite a bit of an advocate for mental health. So I would like to expand a wee bit. I was also looking at maybe I've got a pre-application already ready to go into the council to do about a wellness retreat, like a small wellness retreat, which would incorporate the horses, because horses are great for, you know, mental health. They're great for. I've got a list of stuff here for you if you want me to read it out. What their horses are brilliant for it. I'm kind of looking towards like charity work as well. I've been through a lot. My partner's, I've got ADHD, my partner's also autistic, and he's got ADHD. And yeah, that's kind of looking for the future. So at the moment, we're just getting built up so that we can kind of expand onto the next thing. It's taken a time to get us all sorted out. What else was it? Sorry.
There's a question about the dogs being loose.
So I've got 8 dogs. We have now installed a fence that is maybe 6 foot round the whole of the outside. There was maybe an occasion, or possibly 2, where one of my dogs has gone loose and run up the street into the yard up at the top. But yeah, we've got it all fenced completely off now. Everything's got locks on the gates and stuff, so there shouldn't be any more issues with that. Because I love my dogs, so I don't want them to be unsafe to anybody or to anybody's animals.
Councillor James.
Hi there. Thanks for answering the questions for us. we're being asked to permit a temporary period. What's your plans afterwards? Is there an application going in for a permanent residence, or is this really just your main residence now and you're seeking permanent position? Thank you.
This would be my main residence at the moment. But I would be looking eventually to put in for planning permission for a house, yes.
Ms. Anderson, there appears to be no further questions. You're free to go. Okay. Convener, there's no further deputations on this application. I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you, Vice Convener. Can I ask members if they have any questions for officers? Councillor Braun.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. 2 questions. I'll ask this one first if somebody else comes in. What's Mr. Williamson? What is the business situation where we are? We're looking at a temporary 2-year planning application here. I know I can't find the actual paragraph. It talks about a business plan already in place. So is there a reasonable likelihood of an application being successful for a house at the end of that 2-year period? Have we got the implication is there that we have got enough information?
Thank you for that, Councillor Braun. Obviously, at the moment, this application is retrospective in nature. The caravan being brought on site without the benefit of planning permission. We've sought to advise Ms Anderson as to the processes, etc., to go through. There had been a previous application in before, which we felt was deficient in some background information. She has sought to expand upon that as part of this current application. Moving forward, obviously, there is the wider business approval, which was gained back in May 24, obviously for the stables, etc. So, you know, there is a business case there. There is an active rural business in operation. Clearly, there's an intent by Ms Anderson to expand and grow her business. At this time, we are merely assessing the caravan just now. Members may recall that we've had other applications recently for caravans on a similar basis, albeit in a different area towards Dunkeld. But each application assessed on its own merits. This would afford the applicant the opportunity to develop her business, see how it grows, but it by no means guarantees that a future house proposal would be guaranteed. We would have to assess it at that moment in time.
Could I cover a quick supplementary?
Yes, go on then.
So just to clarify, Mr. Williamson, we are happy that there is a business operating there at the moment, no matter what sort of stage of advancement it is. There is a business obviously running.
Yes, there is a business operating there. Yeah.
Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. Paul, can you clarify what the situation is, if you're able, with regards to water supply and whether that's a material consideration? Thank you.
Certainly, yes. Yeah, the water supply information, we've obviously consulted with Scottish Water and our own private water team on this matter. And as we heard from the earlier deputation from Mrs Humphreys, there is a connection which appears to spur off the mains, which serves a number of properties on it. There have been an indication that it is obviously subject to strain, etc. At particular points, and we have sought to address that via conditions 5 on private water, and also condition 7 relating to safeguarding of any other private water supplies which may exist in the area as well. So certainly further information would have to come in by the end of May if members were to accept the recommendations.
Councillor Braun, you have a second question?
Yes, I do. And Councillor Allen's asked part of it, I think, really. So presumably what the sort of test we're doing would be pressure tests to see if there's pressure in the pipe. And my other point is, given obviously the concerns locally, I'm just wondering whether we should defer until we get that test back. I'm not saying that should be done, but just your view on that really is what I'm asking. Obviously, it is a major concern with all the other houses around, and given it's not there, sorry.
Certainly, the situation is in place at present. Obviously, Condition 5 does set out the standards for the provision of the water supply on the site, and that would have to be looked at together with our colleagues in the private water team. It doesn't necessarily look at the specific pressure itself, but we can certainly fine tune the information that's sought to ensure that it's the right level that our colleagues require in the private water team.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Can I ask for a motion? Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Convener. My motion is to accept the proposal as written.
Thank you. I will second that proposal. Can I ask members if there's an amendment? Any amendment? No amendment. The committee have any comment on the report? No comment, therefore planning permission is therefore granted. Thank you. Okay, we now move on to the second local application, which is for the erection of a raised viewing platform, including a glazed dome, safety barrier, formation of steps and associated works at land 90 metres northwest of Lochside Cottage, Kenmore. And to introduce the report is Mr. Panton. It's Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Convener. As you know, the next application relates to the erection of a viewing platform and glazed dome at the end of an existing breakwater originally approved in 2019 at Taymouth Marina. This application is before members today in light of the receipt of 5 letters of objection, one of which was from the Kenmore Community Council, with another from the Loch Tay Association. The reasons for objection are outlined in paragraph 35 of the report, although mainly relate to adverse visual and amenity impacts, noise, intensification of use, road safety, etc. Having carefully considered the matters raised, officers are satisfied that the scale of the proposal fundamentally restricts the capacity of the venue and that other appropriate planning controls can be utilised via conditions. As such, the recommendation is one of approval, subject to the conditions listed within the report. I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Next slide, please. Here we can see the location of the site, approximately 650 metres southwest of Kenmore, at the well-established and successful Taymouth Marina Resort, which is accessed off the C451, which runs along the southern shore of Loch Tay. Next slide, please. Here we can see an enhanced aerial image which shows the site in more detail, with the apartments located to the south and the other marina buildings immediately adjacent to the berthings. The former Crannog Centre is waterside towards the centre of the shot. Next slide, please. We now have the site plan, which shows the proposed viewing platform and dome located at the end of the existing breakwater. Next slide, please. We now have the greatest detail from above, which shows the relationship to the marina and the adjacent houseboats. Next slide, please. We now have the floor plans, which shows the end of the breakwater covered with timber decking. The glazed dome would then be erected with stone tiles within. A diving board and associated steps back from the water are also proposed. The dome itself would be 6.2 metres in diameter and 3.5 metres in height. Next slide, please. We now have some more plans and visuals of the dome. As outlined in paragraph 51 of the report, the applicant has outlined the dome would be used for sheltered seating or small-scale activities such as yoga, photography for around 6 people, or for social gatherings for around 12 people, as the floor area is only 32 square metres or thereabouts. Next slide, please. This first visual is from the northeast at Kenmore Pier and shows the view over the loch back towards the marina with the rising topography beyond. Next slide, please. The next view is from the shores of Loch Tay at Kenmore and shows the view westwards back towards the marina. Next slide, please. We now see the view from the north looking back southwards towards the site. Next slide, please. And this view at sunset was intended to illustrate the positioning of the development against the darkening sky and against the context of other marina buildings and lighting. Next slide, please. And this next slide was to show some of the other views from the wider vicinity, although most are admittedly over some distance. Next slide, please. We now move on to a series of recent photographs taken by the case officer. These first few photos show the existing breakwater at the top, and the arrow indicates the position of the intended dome. The bottom 2 photos are from the marina and shows the foreground busy with the berthings and houseboats. Next slide, please. These photographs now show the breakwater when it was under construction and are from a more elevated vantage point at the shore of the marina facility. Next slide, please. And this final image shows the view from the shore at Kenmore looking westwards, and the arrow depicts the position of the end of the breakwater. Next slide, please. Thank you, convener. That now concludes my presentation, and I leave members with the site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. We do have deputations on this item, so I'll now hand over to the Vice Convener for the deputation procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, convener. Can I call on Mr. Lindsay, objector? He's also representing the Kenmore Community Council. Mr. Lindsay, I'm sure you're aware of the procedure now. You've had a long wait. Whenever you're comfortable to start, I'll start the clock.
The visual impact of this proposal will be severe and wholly out of keeping with its surroundings. The images submitted with the application do not accurately reflect the true proximity of the structure to Kenmore Beach and the surrounding area, and appear to understate its visual prominence. In reality, the centre of the structure will sit approximately 100 metres from the shoreline and rise to over 8 metres in height from water level. From multiple vantage points, it will appear to sit prominently within the loch itself. It'll be like a big look in the end of your nose. During daylight hours, the design and materials will reflect sunlight, drawing undue attention and disrupting what is currently a calm and natural setting. At night, the structure will be highly illuminated, creating a stark visual intrusion visible over a considerable distance. In addition, noise levels, particularly in the evening and where alcohol is involved, are likely to be significant unless robust acoustic mitigation measures are implemented. On the visual and amenity grounds alone, this application warrants refusal. This proposal must also be considered in the context of cumulative development at this location. It is not an isolated project. In addition to this application, there are substantial ongoing and approved developments, including new holiday homes by the applicant and 2 further consented projects. Collectively, these developments represent a major intensification of use. It is estimated that footfall associated with the marina could increase by up to 300% once all these projects are complete.
This raises serious concerns regarding infrastructure capacity, particularly in relation to access, parking and pedestrian safety. The visitor centre, sauna, raised dome and the existing Ferryman's Inn have no dedicated on-site parking and rely entirely on facilities located across the C451. As a result, all visitors, staff and customers are required to cross or walk along this road. This creates a clear and ongoing safety risk. The C451 is heavily used, including as part of a national cycle route. Yet there is no safe pedestrian crossing provision. It is common to see large numbers of people, including families with young children in pushchairs, navigating the road in unsafe conditions. Previous planning submissions referenced the provision of a pedestrian crossing. However, no such infrastructure has been delivered to date. And we're talking about years there. Further concerns arise from the regular closure of the C451 by Marina Management to facilitate the emptying of sewage storage tanks. This involves obstructing the public highway with vehicles, which not only disrupt traffic, but has the potential to impede emergency access to a cairn. Under Section 59 of the Road Scotland Act 1984, such obstructions are not permissible. This practice should cease immediately and be fully considered as part of any planning determination. The granting of permission for this project would further exacerbate the existing sewage issues. Each of the issues outlined, visual impact, cumulative overdevelopment, inadequate infrastructure and clear risk to public safety, provides sufficient grounds in isolation to justify refusal of this application. Should the authority nevertheless be minded to approve the proposal, it is imperative that the enforceable conditions are imposed to fully address these concerns, particularly in relation to the pedestrian safety, traffic management, noise control and visual mitigation. Well, basically that's that. We've got three things that they could possibly do to fix things. They could consider relocating the dome from the end of the breakwater to the beginning. Yep. Which nobody would see then apart from the people who are sitting inside it. They could fit sound reduction cladding to the structure, and they could partially cover the north side of the structure with non-reflective materials as to deaden reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay. Are you willing to take questions from members? We'll take that as a yes. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Lindsay, for your deputation. Just going to touch on one of the things that you had mentioned there about road closures of the road. Have those been reported? There's a reason for asking that. Oh, they've been complained about to the authority. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lindsay, could you put your response on, because so that people, Councillor James, can hear online?
I believe they have been reported, yes. What happens is they block the road and then they take the vehicles up around the car. Any cars that are coming have got to go up around the car park and be dirt track to get to a car.
Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Vice Commissioner. Thank you for your deputation. I just want to go back to the point about illumination at night. We've seen photographs up on the screen. Obviously, the photographs we see it quite a distance away. But and one was at sunset. I have seen it described somewhere. I don't know what one of the objectives. I think somebody said something that it would be like a light bulb on the side of the shore. I mean, that's obviously a distance from the photographs we've seen are a distance from the on the opposite shore. I just wonder how close are houses to this? Are any properties actually close by?
There's 2 or 3 houses close by. Most of the houses are sort of across the water, including mine. I look out, but this is all I see is this big light bulb. I like bulb.
Mr. Lindsay, there's no further questions. Thank you for your deputation. You're free to go. Can I call on Mr. Strickland, agent to the application? Morning, Mr. Strickland. I'm sure you're aware of the process now. So whenever you're comfortable to start, I'll start the clock.
Good morning. Try again. My name is Eric Strickland. My wife, Naomi, and I own Strath Tay Developments and Taymouth Marina. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I want to start by acknowledging the concerns raised by the Community Council and local residents. We hear them and we respect them. I was born in Crieff and have lived in Aberfeldy for the past 30 years, where I brought up my family, so I understand how important places like Loch Tay are to people who live here. It's not just a backdrop, it's a part of people's lives and their sense of place. We have engaged the Community Council and local residents and will continue to do so. In 2010, my wife and I bought the bankrupt Water Sports Centre and Failing Hotel on the shore of Loch Tay, formerly known as Croft-na-Caber, once Scotland's largest water sports centres. It had been left in a poor state and had gone bankrupt. I stood in front of this committee 15 years ago and I asked for the council's support to transform it, and that support was given. Since then, we've built a business that now employs over 70 people, and it's rising to over 80 people this year. We built the Hot Box 10 years ago, Scotland's largest wood-fired sauna, pioneering the wild wellness in the UK, which has a 7-metre slide straight into the loch. That's something people now travel to across the UK to come and experience. We went on to create the UK's first ever sauna cruise boats, which have also been featured nationally in the Financial Times, the Herald, the Telegraph, Condé Nast Traveller. Today, this is one of the most visited destinations in Highland Perthshire. We built the breakwater and created a promenade along the top of it that has become a walk where people are drawn to. They head out along it and stand at the end, taking in the view. What we're proposing is simply to make that experience better by adding a small, transparent shelter at the end. At the same time, we're continuing to invest in the site. Contractors are on site right now, building our second spa, installing a new sewage treatment plant as we speak, creating a new haven, and installing a pedestrian crossing. That represents around £4 million of private investment currently being delivered on the site, including the new sewage treatment plant, because we're solving the infrastructure problems ourselves without any public funding. So this proposal sits within a much wider programme of investment. One concern raised is the impact on the landscape, and that's exactly why this proposal has been looked at so carefully. Your planning officers have assessed it and concluded that within the scale of Loch Tay, the visual impact will be minimal. The proposal itself is simple. It's a small, transparent dome at the end of a structure that already exists. It's designed to sit lightly in the landscape and not dominate it. A place where people can sit, shelter from the weather, and look out across the loch. I know the main concern raised is about how this space will be used, and I want to address that directly. It's been described as a cocktail bar. It isn't. This is a multi-use space, somewhere to stargaze, to take in the wildlife, to hold stretch classes, to use as a solarium for our sauna boat guests, or simply to sit in shelter and enjoy a drink on a lochside terrace. That's the same experience offered at any hotel, marina or resort in Scotland. I understand why people might worry about how a space like this could be used, but what matters is what is actually being proposed and what will be controlled through conditions. There will be no amplified music, lighting will be low level and directed inward, and access to the water will be controlled. We're content for all of that to be secured by condition. The officers have looked at all of this and are recommending approval. I would simply ask you to consider what has been delivered here since 2010. A site once in decline, now transformed into a vibrant, growing business. And I'd ask your support for us to continue to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Are you willing to take questions from members? Okay, members, could you populate the chat function? And Councillor Braun will take your first question.
Thank you for your deputation. I know roughly where you are, but I don't know the area that well. 2 points were raised, I think, of concern. One was noise, one was light. We'll take noise first. There'll be no, obviously you said there'll be no amplified music, but will there be alcohol served there? Because that was a point that was raised by the objector, and that would encourage obviously noise. So, and I presume the structure is not of a great soundproof quality. I'm not if it's glass or perspex or what it's been made of, but I assume that the noise reduction isn't built into it. So could we just have a clarification on that?
We operate the Hotbox Spa, which has a waterfront bar where we sell alcohol immediately on the waterfront, as we do at the Ferryman's Inn. We've never had a complaint at all about any noise control. It's a resort, so it's managed completely within that. The dome itself is small, it's modest. We would hope to be able to serve alcohol in a controlled environment, no different to how we do at the Hotbox or at the Ferryman's Inn on the terraces there, which are on the water's edge. We control that environment as a license holder, so it's controlled. It's not separate businesses at all. It's owned by my wife and myself. So from as I've said, the usage of it is multifunctional, and it's a space which we would use at different times during the year in different weather conditions.
Sir Allen.
Thank you, Vice Convener, and thank you, Mr. Strickland. The objector spoke about the closure of the road and the diversion of traffic. Can you just address that for me, please?
We've had issues with our sewage treatment plant, which is why we're spending close to £2 million on a new sewage system. Contractor is actively on site as we speak. We had to do some maintenance work and emptying of the tank that was there. That what had happened at the point is that there was a tank that was parked on the road. Vehicles were able to go past it. That's since been addressed. The lorry that in question at the time was able to, we created an access onto the sand pit area, which is on the shorefront. So it meant that the lorry didn't actually need to park on the road anymore. So that doesn't happen anymore in terms of a lorry parking on the road. It was a temporary situation that we had to do to address a problem that we had with the sewage treatment plant. So hopefully that answers your question.
Hayley McLaren.
Thank you. My question is a wee bit more broad. Is this a sort of, I mean, we commend the fact that you've created this business from one that had failed. Is this almost like not a diversification, but another add-on that's adding to your business viability?
Thank you. I think the key thing that we're trying to do at the marina is to try and create something which is slightly different and experiences. We were the pioneers of wild wellness in the UK. We built the Scotland's largest sauna well before sauna became a trend, which is now. And people have come to do something different. The sauna cruise boats, which we operate, are a fantastic draw for people to the area. And what we want to do is to be able to create a space where people are coming, in their dressing gowns, they're going for a sauna cruise, and we'd love to be able to have a place that they could sit after the sauna cruise down Loch Tay and enjoy the view in their dressing gowns as a solarium space. So it's a multifunctional kind of space. So it's just yet another reason for people to, when they look at choices of where they go on holiday, where they travel for the weekend, it's not just, it's another reason to come, to go, let's go there, that looks fun. It's, things like the slide that we put in, 10 years ago, everybody thought we were completely mad, but people come from all over the country to do it. So yeah, it's a small thing, but it's an important thing from an experience for a guest.
Councillor Braun.
Thanks, Vice Convener. Second question, it comes back to the other point, which is light. We've seen the photograph, we saw the photograph on the sunset. So any form of light, I know you said it'd be pointing inwards, but it will illuminate. I'm just, you mentioned about people on stargaze, so I'm just wondering, would you have any problem if there was a restriction on the amount of time it could be illuminated? So it had to be shut off at a particular time at night. And especially, obviously, if people want to stargaze, you don't want light pollution. So would that be a concern for you if we asked for that to be implemented? Well, that's actually been conditioned in the recommendation by the planning officer. So they've looked at that, and it specifically states that it has to be low level pinpoint lighting facing inwards and facing down. So from that point of view, there's the light pollution issue has already been tackled at quite a length by the planning officer. The point I was saying, would you object if there was a condition that the lights had to be shut off at a particular time at night? I mean, what sort of time scale using this do you envisage it being used? I think the intention would be, for it to operate in line with how we operate the existing spa experience at the hot box. We do have evening sessions, at different times of the year. In the summer months, we're open longer at the current hot box till about midnight. So I'm really keen to be able to make sure there's flexibility within that. But, I take it very seriously in terms of the lighting issue. The hot box currently in the Ferryman's Inn is lit on the shorefront. Not had any complaints about that, either about lighting or about music.
I have a question. You probably have a preferred contractor. Have they got experience of building such structures in such an exposed area? Because it can certainly blow a hoolie down the loch.
The next stage for us is going through building-borne process. We've got Miller Consulting Engineers who are our engineers for the project, and so they're looking at the engineering solution for it. So it would be designed to be compliant with the building regs for that location.
Mr. Strickland, there appears to be no further questions. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations on this application, so I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you. Can I ask the members have any questions for officers? Councillor Braun.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just I know the condition 8 is there, but just Mr. Williamson, is it would it be competent to limit the time for illumination? Looking at that photograph you showed us of sunset, even the lowest lights pointing in would illuminate it. That's obviously a concern. I mean, and it's an unusual design. It's a dome effect, so it will illuminate completely. Would it be competent to do so? I'm not saying that we can set a time, but would it be competent to do that in view of local, a bit keen, in view of local amenity?
In short, I think my response would be no. I don't think we consider that to be necessary. Just for members' awareness, one of the plans submitted, and it was shown on the screen, albeit it's obviously very difficult to make out the associated text, just highlighted that the lighting system that they have for within the dome itself is a LED spotlight tension wire system. So just obviously very small units. 6-watt bulbs creating 360 lumens, obviously 12 of those in total for a space of 32 square meters or thereabouts. Given the associated distances involved, we don't think there's any need to consider restricting lighting times.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions, therefore can I ask for a motion? Bailey McLaren.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, I would just like to propose this application for approval with the conditions that are set out within our papers. It's just another add-on experience, and as Mr. Strickland has explained to us, it's the customers are looking for additional features, and he's reacting to his market, and it's something that for that tourist area, tourist sector, it's a positive. So I look forward to seeing the completion of it.
Thank you. Councillor James, you wish to second?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to second this one, Convener. I actually used to have property in Kenmore, and I've seen the changes over the last years to the difference that Mr. Strickland's made over there, and I think this is a sympathetic addition to facilities that are already there. If I'm honest, it's glass, you can see through it. The lighting it is condition 4, condition 8, conditions for the lighting has already been said. I think this will be a nice facility, so very happy to second. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask if there's any amendment? No amendment. Do committee members have any comment on the report? No comment on the report, therefore planning permission is granted. Okay, we move on to 523, which is for the erection of a dwelling house, alterations to access track and associated works, land north of the Croft, Biernan, Aberfeldy, and to introduce the report is Mr. Williamson.
Thank you, Convener. As you note, the final local application up for consideration today relates to the erection of a dwelling house on land within the existing settlement boundary of Biernan on the northern shores of Loch Tay. The proposal is before members today in light of the receipt of 5 letters of objection, one of which was from the Glenlyon and Loch Tay Community Council. The reasons for objection are outlined in paragraph 16 of the report, although largely relate to the belief that the proposal is contrary to the development plan, inadequate access, loss of privacy and overlooking, and the need for developer contributions. As members shall note, officers consider that the proposal is compliant with the relevant policies of the development plan and should be approved subject to the payment of the necessary developer contributions toward affordable housing. I'll now take members through a short presentation to detail the proposals further. Here we can see the location of the site close to the centre of Biernan, located just off the A827 between Kenmore and Killin. The site is amongst a number of other modest plots in the vicinity which have been constructed over a number of years. Next slide, please. Here we can see an enhanced aerial image which shows the site in more detail, with many properties fronting the A827, although many backland properties have been introduced over the years, reflecting a varied pattern of development. Next slide, please. We now have the site plan, this time showing the layout of the site and the separation to the croft to the south. The access road then loops round the back of the property, serving another 4 properties. Next slide, please. We now have the elevations of the proposal, which show a modest dwelling of traditional proportions and quality contemporary materials. It also gives an indication of the level of cut required to create a level platform for construction on the site. Next slide, please. This slide shows the floor plan of the proposed dwelling with 3 bedrooms on the ground floor level, along with a shared living, dining, kitchen space and WC. The upper roof space is indicated for storage, although would be served by roof lights and may be capable for conversion for additional accommodation in due course. Next slide, please. We now see the roof plan with solar PV panels on the south-facing roof plane. It also shows the 2 car parking spaces adjacent to the dwelling entrance. Next slide, please. We now have the sections which illustrate the levels difference from the croft at roadside and Croft Cottage to the north, or on the right-hand side of the images. In both instances, the separation distance between windows is over 34 metres in each case, which is well in excess of standards in the placemaking guidance. Next slide, please. We now have some axonometric visuals prepared by the agent showing various angles of it. Next slide, please. We now move on to a series of recent photographs taken by the case officer. On the left-hand side, we see the access track from the A827, which is shared by 4 residential properties, albeit there is an additional driveway immediately off to the left-hand side to serve the croft. On the right is the view from the eastern edge of the site, back down the access track towards the 827, with the view over Loch Tay beyond. Next slide, please. These final stitched images are a view westwards over the site and seek to show the change in levels, separation to adjacent property, and the variation in architectural styles and form in the area. Next slide, please. Thank you, convener. That now concludes my presentation, and I'll leave you with the site plan for reference.
Thank you, Mr. Williamson. And we do have deputation on this item, so I'll now hand over to the vice convener for the deputation procedure.
Thank you. Convener, we have Miss Robertson on the telephone. Miss Robertson, you may have to *6 to unmute your phone. Miss Robertson is making deputation on behalf of Glenlyon and Loch Tay Community Council, who are objecting to the application. Good morning, or good afternoon, Miss Robertson.
Hello there, thank you. Yes, hello.
Hello.
We'd like to. Oh,
Yep.
Can you hear me all right there?
Yep, I was just going to say we can hear you loud and clear, and whenever you start your deputation, I'll start the clock.
Right, okay, thank you very much. So yes, we would like to object to this planning application. We do believe that it is contrary to the Local Development Plan 2, Policy 1A and BC. We don't believe it makes a positive contribution to the surrounding built and natural environment and will not result in good placemaking. We object to the inclusion of the access road, lay-by and designated amenity space being within the boundary of a private site. And we believe that the overall impression that will be created will be, it will result in inappropriate housing density in the area, as it seems to be squashed into a corner, is the overall impression. Although we did have concerns about Croft Cottage with the loss of privacy. With Croft Cottage, there's a burden on the land which would restrict any mitigating planting, screening. The site has been created by subdividing the Croft Garden, and it's been brought to my attention that in 2015 a similar planning application, in that it was a subdivision of a garden in Fernan, Number 15017757 IPL was refused as it was contrary to policy RD1 of the local development plan, as it would result in a loss of important area of open space and introduce background development, which would have had a significant impact on the character setting of the historical rig system of Fernan Village, which is a historical characteristic of Fernan Village. So we can't really see the difference with this application here. Also, the point was being made that an extra plot would help ease the housing crisis. But despite the fact that the 4 plots adjacent to this application, which is 19-20212 FLL, 2 of these plots remain unsold after 2 years, despite large reduction in the price. Therefore, that would indicate that there isn't a need for further housing in that area. And also, we'd like for the natural heritage and biodiversity that the condition 3 enhancements are secured, so that we can have some biodiversity enhancement included in there. And that's all I have to say on that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson. Are you willing to take questions from members?
Yes, yes.
If members could populate the chat function. Ms. Robertson, there appears to be no questions. Thank you for taking the time for your deputation, and you're free to go.
Thank you very much.
I call on Mr. McCafferty, agent to the application. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. McCafferty. You've got 5 minutes for your deputy. Okay, we have Mr. McCafferty here, but okay, so just for the Councillor James online and other members, we have Mr. Johnson, agent for the application. Mr. Johnson, whenever you're ready, I'll start the clock.
Thank you, Vice Convener, members. I have very little to say today, you'll be pleased to hear. Sorry, I have very little to say. Offer apologies on behalf of the applicant. He's otherwise engaged with family duties, visiting universities, I believe, and that takes precedence. My role here today is primarily to make myself available to any questions the elected members have. I just wanted to say we've worked closely with the officer, Joanne Ferguson, to reach the stage we're at. We've had an interesting and positive dialogue. We're grateful for the support that she's offered. And I make myself available should you have any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Members, can you populate the chat functions if you have any questions? Councillor Braun.
Thanks for asking me. Thank you for the quick deputation. The property is single story and the upper attic is going to be for storage. But the roof lights put in. I'm just wondering, why is the roof lights in what's going to be just an attic?
Thank you, Councillor Braun. I've worked closely with AKG Homes for the best part of 15 years. They've successfully built many properties all over Highland, Perthshire. Mr. Douthwaite, Glenn Douthwaite, is quite an interesting character. He knows his market inside out, and he regularly gives me and other architects a hard time for not including attic type spaces in properties. He feels that when it comes to sales, it's useful to be able to say to potential purchasers that there is a large attic space that could be converted at some point in the future. So the firm intention is for it to be attic storage, but to offer a space that could, with the correct approvals in terms of building warrant, that space might be used at some point in the future.
Mr. Harvey.
Thanks, Vice Convener. I had the same question, so I'm just going to pass. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson, there's no further questions. You're free to go. Convener, there's no further deputations on this application, so I'll hand back to yourself.
Thank you very much. Can I ask members if they have any questions for officers? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. It's a simple one, really, Paul. The objector spoke about backland development. Is that what this is, and is that a planning issue? Thank you.
It is a plot located to the rear of another existing plot, so technically, yes, it is backland, but it is allocated white land within the settlement boundary of Fiernan, so subject to consideration of plot density, scale, design materials, etc. It's on a case-by-case basis, so it's an acceptable proposal in our eyes.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Can you ask your first question, please?
Yes, thanks, Convener. I've only got two now because Councillor Allen pinched one of mine. So I'm just picking up on a couple of points raised by objectors. So the first one, Section 75 agreement, it was mentioned one of the objectors suggested that the contribution should be paid up front. They felt that the Section 75 can't be enforced. Now, I've never come across this before. I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that. Is it better to have the payment up front, or are we happy to go with Section 75? Because they've always been good to me in the past.
Certainly, it very much comes down to whichever method the applicant is most comfortable with and dependent upon their own circumstances and cash flow at any point in time. Obviously, the level of an affordable housing plot in this instance, because it's been deemed to be an addition onto a previous development of 4 houses in the immediate vicinity, it is of a significant value. So our option and what we've sought from members is an agreement to either have it via upfront payment or via Section 75, whichever is easiest for the applicant.
So just so, Mr. Williamson, is it then a decision for the committee to make, or is it? And while Mr. Edlitt's coming in, there's not been a problem enforcing Section 75s in the past, is there?
I think, could I just explain that what's set out in the report is standard, where certainly for smaller contributions, we do prefer them paid up front. Now, that's usually where it's £5,000–6,000. This is obviously greater, so it falls more in the middle. So there's the option of pay up front or a Section 75. Of course, Section 75 was set out when it's to be paid, and of course, if it's not paid, subject to enforcement.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Convener. The question I had was just related to the objector's comment regarding access. Just looking at the map and the layout of it, it seems that there's just 1 or 2 access roads to it. Was any other comment on her or her specific comments about access issues?
Certainly from our perspective, we would normally be looking where accesses serve a multitude of properties, and when you're getting up over 6, then we look for it to be to adoptable standards. Our view is that it's not at that position. This will probably represent the last development proposal which could be accessed off this access track without significant upgrade, but I'm not sure whether Lachlan or Carlin wish to add anything further on the roads perspective.
Lachlan.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. There's nothing further to add at this time. As Paul's kind of covered the point, so I've not got anything further there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Convener. My question was just seeking some clarification around the objector's claim that there was a previous application for the site and that was refused, and now this one has been granted, has been put forward for approval. I just wonder if we can have some clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. I've looked into the application to which was referred, and it actually relates to a different site entirely, which is further to the northeast of this site and actually encroaches upon land which is protected open space within the Fearnan settlement boundary. This site in question isn't, so it's completely different circumstances.
Thank you. Any further questions? No further questions. Can I ask for a motion? Councillor Braun.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Just a motion to pass the paper as written. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor James, you wish to second?
Yes, sorry, I wasn't as quick as Councillor Braun. Yeah, quite happy to second, Convener. That all needs to be said. Thank you.
No amendment. Therefore, planning permission is therefore granted. Thank you. Okay. As members will have seen from a email put out, the Moor of Rannoch Hotel has been withdrawn from the agenda so that appropriate revisions can be made to the report and will be brought back in the future meeting. So item 6 is proposal of application notices, and the first pan is for a residential development, landscaping and associated infrastructure part allocated to site H14 at land 150 metres southwest of Kintillo Cemetery, Bridge of Erne. Do members have any comment on that? Bailey McLaren.
Comment, is this pan, am I being confused that there's been, this is a well, not a duplication, but of there already, as the site that we've already had a application in for?
That's correct, Bailey McLaren. So this site was previously subject to an application by Scotia Homes, to which there was an appropriate pan and an application. Then there was subsequent change of house types. It is now Persimmon Homes who have acquired the site, so this pan is for Persimmon Homes. So you're correct that this has been before us before, but it's changing from Scotia Homes to Persimmon.
Councillor Illingworth.
Yeah. Can I ask officers to consider the need for a two roads going in and out of the site?
Just to clarify, is that 2 roads going in from the Wicks of Begley Road?
One from the Wicks of Begley and one from the Meadows, whether you need to have both of them.
Yeah. Any further comment on that one? No further comment, then we'll move on to the next one. The next one's for the formation of mixed leisure and visitor development comprising of erection of holiday accommodation units, formation of spa facilities, indoor and outdoor recreation areas, footpath, cycleway link, vehicle access, parking, landscaping and associated infrastructure at land 400 metres west of Tarnhill, Milnathorpe. Does the committee have any comment on that? No comment. Therefore, we'll move on to the next one. And the next one's for the erection of a hydrogen production facility and associated works land 1.4 kilometre northwest of Beanie Farm, Braco, Dunblane. Any comment on that one? Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Convener. Just a couple of comments, really. From what I've read and what I've heard and what I've seen, it appears that this could be happening concurrently with the other major consideration that we've got under consideration just now for the SSEN 4 kilovolt substation. And I'm just concerned about the levels of traffic that is going to bring to Braco. I'm also concerned about the construction and the access. I think we need to have a wee consideration about the access and its suitability. I've had an approach from a constituent who suggests to me that the making of this hydrogen will make acid rain. I'll just that's a comment I'm sharing with you. It would be good to understand that this would not lead to acid rain. And finally, just really, these things are stacking up and they're coming up and they're ruining our countryside. Why don't we actually ask these people to stick them in brownfield sites such as Longannet, Kincardine, Cockenzie power stations? They're great places for this. Why are we sticking them in beautiful countryside? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, convener. Sorry about laughing about the acid rain. I don't think this will cause acid rain. The question I just have is this is a fairly new development within our area, and hydrogen processing does have quite unique risks. And I see you've already contacted HSE, but just make sure that we get the full details to them to kind of push away any particular concerns about this kind of development. Thanks.
Councillor James.
Yeah, thanks, convener. And Ken Harvey's pretty much on where.
Okay, you've muted yourself, Councillor James.
I bet everybody's glad about that, convener. Hopefully you can hear me. But given the nature of hydrogen and storage and everything else, and potential for a disaster, and given the fact that we have other developments in the area for infrastructure, I'd just be concerned in safety distances in the event of something happening were taken into consideration. So there is, safety is really important. I know hydrogen's a new thing and probably very much needed, but not at any cost.
Thank you, Councillor James. Any further comment on that one? No further comments. Okay, that was the last thing on the agenda today, so thank you very much for your time, and I'll see you next month. Thank you.